Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Eastern Border. Today, as you can see, I'm in Riga with Rob here.
Hello.
Manager slash I don't know, angry corporate email responder.
Yes.
And today we decided to talk about people in a way because, as you might have noticed, he is a young person. Look, we have those, and I'm not. I understood that I'm not when I found out that even the "Hello, fellow kids" meme is too old for kids these days to know what the hell that is.
I would not say that.
I have look. You're Gen Z, but I'm talking about like 16, 17-year-olds have no idea, and that is horrible.
Oh yes. Oh, fair. That's fair. Yes, that's true.
Oh boy, I hope everything is doing fine. Let us, if you live chat stuff and everything. Due to moving around and all this apartment stuff, because he's moving in here and I'm moving. Well, I'm in Pilda. We just have doing all this mess, and we wanted to talk about identity politics. Now that's something new which we haven't done. No, but it's really important since I have showed you all the vatniks and everything, and in a lot of cases you just see the end results. You don't understand why the whole mess is the way it is, and what makes Russia not a modern country. It's not a nation state in the classical sense. It's a colonial land-based empire basically.
I think it would be. It's generous to call it an empire at all.
It's a zombie corpse of an empire.
Oh, that's more accurate.
That is fallen apart. But the thing is, it's hard to explain. For example, one thing that you definitely don't get is that not only, like, a lot of people always ask if they live so badly, will Russians? Okay, I need to put this normally. A lot of people think that Russia is going to go and people are going to revolt because of economy, but that is not the reason why they're going to revolt. Economy is just going to push people on the streets to follow someone, but that's not how it starts. Economy is just going to push.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine.
I'm just checking if everything is working.
See, the thing is,
you heard. That's
cool. The thing is that economy and the thinking about your own well-being is not what the country is about.
I mean, the Russian people have been used to horrible conditions for their most of their history.
Yeah, but you also saw that video with Kalashnikov. By the way, we have understood that Stockholm syndrome is very real. Maxim Kalashnikov at least tortures, but currently, as you've probably seen in the thumbnail, what's going to happen is that any troubles or smuta, as back in old days, I think it might start in two cases. I had one previously, but now I have two. First case scenario is when something happens in Chechnya, when Ramzan Kadyrov goes away. I still stand by my theory that Abtialudinov, the guy that leads the Akhmat thing, is doing something, because even Zed Vatniks noticed a couple of days ago there was a photo where when Ukrainians struck Grozny, like the big Grozny city, that thing, they blew up like a Chechen HQ thing.
Yep.
Ramzan Kadyrov made an answer about how he's going to do everything for the special military operation on the fourth year of the whole thing, with about 10,000 strong, well-armed, well-equipped military unit. Zed Vatniks obviously had an interesting question: why the hell are not they on the front lines already in the fourth year of the war?
Yeah.
And they also have their own exchange thing. And Ramzan Kadyrov, this thing is, look, this man sounds cynical, but if you are a person with brains, any brains whatsoever, then you simply cannot like Ramzan Kadyrov at all. It is impossible.
I mean, he's like a facsimile of a man.
So, and Abtialudinov, like I said, it's more likely that he's going to try something, because otherwise...
I mean, Chechnya's history is already, like, in the last 30 years is colorful enough to so...
Look, we like
it's like the Russian Balkans.
In Chechnya, definitely in North Caucasus, what we're going to see definitely is that literally anyone with the surname Kadyrov is going to be publicly hanged in the light poles, basically. And also, if you are an ethnic Russian,
that's a very hopeful scenario.
If you are also an ethnic Russian arrived from Moscow to work for the administration, I would highly recommend not being in Chechnya at that point.
No, that's true.
That's going to be a bloodbath. And that is what Maxim Kalashnikov worries about, because we watched about his Народная дружина, those militias, and they talk about organizing, they talk about everything, and they don't talk about organizing them. They do it under the pretense of patrolling the streets and combating migrant crime. Meanwhile, Maxim Kalashnikov, who invites all of them over, constantly speaks to be everyone must be ready for the hour X when everything starts. They post it constantly, and they really spread it network, because according to them, the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest catastrophe ever because loss of empire. And what if evil Westerners might try to introduce democracy again? And they really want to do that. I'm not sure how that will be how successful that will be, because again you have tons and tons of people over there. But I think that's an option too, because
a scenario that could occur.
That could those are two most realistic things, because I think Ramzan Kadyrov, something happens to Ramzan Kadyrov, flops, or when the war goes bad, like really bad, like when there's a massive, when there's like something big really, and Maxim Kalashnikov basically is holding Yuri Yevich on the leash, because Yuri Yevich already has called for getting people in the battalions and everything.
Oh yeah, he's already ringing the bells of war, so to speak. Yeah,
and I wanted to talk about this because, again, in a lot of cases, when everyone sits down and does game theory about what Russia wants, then it's hilarious, because what Russia wants and what Putin wants and what Putin knows are very different things. However, the whole mess exists because they have fundamentally different worldview, extremely different from the European one, and that is because it always has been so, since there always has been the separation between the serfs and everything. And there's this, I found a channel that I like from Ukraine. It's called in Russian Khren Dabliki, banned in Russia, of course. And I have a selection of a couple of videos with subtitles, which we're going to watch and comment. I have seen them a while ago, but first of all, he does the explanation. He does it in Russian because, sadly, a lot of these people who work in the media, well, except Starsky works in English, but a lot of it's hard to find.
Yeah, but there's a lot of like, how do I would call them headline hunters.
Yeah, and it's
where they just go through like the general information, but they don't really dig deeper than the surface level.
And there's
a lot of those.
And in a lot of cases,
with absolutely no expertise.
And in a lot of cases, sometimes I'm just staring at the numbers and asking, okay, where did you get that? It's just weird. But first of all, there's this common myth that's going to be like an intro, because very awkward here. There is an intro. I will now turn on this. I hope my voice is still active. I hope it is, yeah. This video is about the mythos of the inexplainable Russian soul, the idea that you can't understand Russia with your mind, which I agree with. I haven't spoken about this, but he's gonna put a Ukrainian worldview. He's a Ukrainian historian, and he makes, obviously he has his own biases.
Yeah.
But if he makes some mistakes, we'll check him. But my take is that the Russian soul, they play this. Well, what do you do if you can't give people neither freedom nor sausage? You give them something that cannot be measured, quantified in any way or form, and told that is the best thing ever, basically. But
it's
yeah.
A reason to suffer.
Oh yeah. So let's
Загадочная русская душа. Это, как принято считать в России, некое совершенно уникальное, особенное, едва ли не мистическое явление, которое, мол, отличает русских от всех остальных народов. Западные люди, ученые, философы со своими простыми рациональными умами будто бы не способны постичь эту бесконечную духовную глубину, которой обладает русский человек чуть ли не с самого рождения. Однако на самом деле все гораздо проще и банальнее.
What? They're not on?
They're on, but you see the issue here?
This is silly. How do I make them? What if I do this?
I think it's an OBS thing. What? Bad, I guess.
Oh wait, I'll try to.
Or you can do that as well. Just have it in small.
I will try to do this in smaller screen. Maybe that will help.
That does work. Yeah.
Которое, мол, отличает русских от всех остальных народов. Западные люди, ученые, философы со своими простыми рациональными умами будто бы не способны постичь эту бесконечную духовную глубину, которой обладает русский человек чуть ли не с самого рождения. Однако на самом деле все гораздо проще и банальнее. Загадочную русскую душу просто придумали. И не так уж и давно. Всего-то лет 150 назад, в 19 веке. О ней написали в книгах, которые быстро вошли в моду и стали основой для создания мифа, который продолжает жить до сих пор. Перед нами не глубокая истина, а тщательно сконструированная иллюзия. Тот самый народ, те же крестьяне, которых в 19 веке наделили мифической глубиной русской души, едва ли были в курсе этой своей якобы уникальности, потому что банально не умели читать. Русская крестьянская масса, жившая в невежестве и рабстве, была далека от тех духовных исканий, которые ей приписывались. Этот разрыв между мифом и реальной жизнью привел к тому, что цивилизованный мир в начале 20 века с ужасом наблюдал за тем, что на самом деле таит в себе пресловутая русская душа. Когда революция и гражданская война вырвали на поверхность истинную суть российского народа, иллюзии о его загадочности разрушились словно карточный домик. Вместо страдающего загадочного героя мир увидел хаос, жестокость и безжалостные убийства. Русская душа оказалась вовсе не загадочной, а вполне объяснимой, если учитывать те исторические и социальные условия, в которых она формировалась. Но как этот миф сумел выжить после стольких исторических потрясений и трагедий? Благодаря чему он живуч настолько, что на этом фундаменте Россия продолжает строить свои имперские амбиции и оправдывает жестокие войны? И самое интересное, кто же именно этот миф создал? Смотрите далее. Будет интересно. Но вначале подпишитесь на этот канал и нажмите на колокольчик для уведомлений о новых видео. Не забывайте ставить лайки и писать комментарии, тем самым вы помогаете в продвижении этого видео. А если хотите поддержать автора, заходите на Patreon и Buy Me Coffee. Все ссылки в описании и первом комментарии. Миф о загадочной русской душе – это не просто культурная особенность, воспетая в книгах. Это инструмент, который российская власть веками использовала для...
It's 10 minutes of that stuff, but you know we can.
It's too loud anyway.
You know what? We can do this one. We can play the video, and if I want to comment something important, then we'll talk later so that you have like a comfy thing.
Манипуляций. Этот миф стал своеобразным щитом, за которым можно скрывать любую агрессию, любую жестокость, любое нарушение прав человека. Ведь если душа русская загадочна, значит никто, кроме самой России, не может ее понять. Это как универсальная отговорка. Мы такие, какие есть, и вам нас не понять. Политическая элита, начиная еще с царских времен, а затем и в Советском Союзе, активно культивировала этот миф, чтобы оправдать свою политику. Странные поступки государства, жестокие войны, подавление свобод – все это можно было объяснить особым менталитетом и непонятной душой. Мол, так уж у нас заведено. Не для того мы веками страдали, чтобы жить по вашим западным правилам. Прекрасная иллюстрация загадочности русской души описана в известном рассказе Лескова «Левша», в котором английский мастер сделал точную копию блохи с механизмом, чтобы его блоха прыгала. Мастеровой левша же переплюнул англичанина. Он эту блоху взял и подковал. Потрясающее свидетельство мастерства, правда? Подковать блоху. Но мастерство это абсолютно бессмысленное, потому что подкованная блоха уже не могла прыгать, механизм был сломан. Так в чем же загадочность русской души на примере левши? Самую точную формулировку этому дала более 10 лет назад писательница Людмила Улицкая в интервью Познеру. Правда, она привела в пример другое произведение, написанное военным преступником Прилепиным. Но, тем не менее, загадочная русская душа, по версии Улицкой, это
очень мощное целеполагание с полным отсутствием здравого смысла. Ну, теперь меня, конечно, убьют. Вот. Я, наверное, не должна была этого говорить.
Улицкая уловила самую суть мифа, который в буквальном смысле ставит цель выше ее логического оправдания. И здесь заключена вся парадоксальность мифа о загадочности русской души. Стремление к великим достижениям часто идет вразрез с элементарным здравым смыслом. Эта черта, столь романтизированная в литературе, на деле становится причиной исторических трагедий и жестоких преступлений против человечности. Миф о загадочной русской душе продолжает жить, оправдывая бессмысленные поступки, в которых здравый смысл уже давно уступил место хаотичному стремлению к абсурдным целям. В советское время миф о русской душе стал почти священным. Он использовался для того, чтобы оправдать любую жертву во имя общего блага. Когда людей отправляли на погибель, когда миллионы гибли в лагерях, все это объяснялось через величие и самопожертвование загадочной русской души. Эта душа должна была принять все – и страдания, и тиранию ради высшей цели, которую, конечно же, понимали только в Кремле. И сейчас этот миф продолжает играть свою роль. Когда Россия вторгается в соседние страны или нарушает международные законы, мы слышим знакомую риторику. Запад нас не понимает. У нас особый путь. У нас уникальная душа. Миф живет и процветает, прикрывая все те действия, которые в других странах назвали бы диктатурой или агрессией. Это удобно – строить свое имперское мышление на идее, что русским дозволено больше, потому что они какие-то особенные. Даже оправдание действий военных можно свести к тому, что за непостижимым, загадочным менталитетом всегда есть нечто более высокое, чем просто жажда власти или территорий. Миф о загадочной русской душе давно стал фундаментом для многочисленных стереотипов, которые искажают восприятие русских как народа, словно обреченного на вечные страдания и трагедии. Эти стереотипы романтизируют боль, создавая образ народа, для которого страдания не просто жизненные обстоятельства, а почти духовная миссия. В результате любой кризис, любое бедствие или даже жестокость, исходящая от самого народа, оправдываются этой мистической загадочностью. В массовом сознании, словно по некоему негласному соглашению, укоренилось убеждение: если русский народ страдает, значит, на это есть какая-то высшая причина. Однако реальность далеко не столь поэтична. Под маской загадочности часто скрываются вполне конкретные социальные и политические механизмы, которые обесценивают человеческую жизнь и оправдывают бездействие перед реальными проблемами. Взять хотя бы массовые репрессии в СССР, когда миллионы невинных людей стали жертвами режима. Здесь уже не о каких-то высших смыслах идет речь, а о циничной политической системе, где человеческая жизнь стоила ничтожно мало. Но миф продолжал работать. Страдания народа представлялись как некая неизбежная часть его судьбы, вместо того, чтобы признать это следствием жестоких репрессий.
Yeah, that's the myth. I hope you can hear me. That's the myth of the toughness thing. It's toughness taken to extremes. It's all toughness.
Этот стереотип создает и другой вредный эффект. Он стирает грань между ролями жертвы и агрессора. Исторические примеры показывают, что русская страдательность часто идет рука об руку с жестокостью по отношению к другим. Сколько раз в истории внешние агрессии оправдывались тем, что русский народ страдал и поэтому заслуживал компенсации. Вторжения в соседние страны и захват территорий не раз обосновывались тем, что русские просто реализуют свое право на защиту или восстановление утраченного, ведь они слишком долго страдали. Кроме этого, миф нивелирует реальные проблемы, такие как бедность, социальное неравенство, отсутствие прав и свобод. Бедность становится чем-то почти духовным, чем-то, что русский человек должен терпеть, потому что такова его судьба. Неравенство. Ну что ж, русская душа всегда находила радость в страданиях, так зачем же...
There is a saying, we never lived well, so that let's not start today. Не жили хорошо, не надо и не будем начинать.
Что-то менять. Миф о загадочной русской душе, несмотря на многочисленные исторические потрясения и трагедии, оказался невероятно живучим. Но как так получилось, что этот миф не только выжил, но и стал фундаментом для имперских амбиций России, оправдывая жестокие войны и агрессивную политику? Ответ лежит в самом его происхождении и в том, как он был адаптирован и использован. Происхождение этого мифа прослеживается в литературе XIX века, когда критик Белинский и такие писатели, как Достоевский и Толстой, начали формировать образ русского народа как глубокого, страдающего и в то же время великого. Их произведения были наполнены нравственными и этическими вопросами, создавая впечатление, что русская душа отличается особой внутренней сложностью.
And then one of the examples are Brothers Karamazov, where everyone suffers and dies and it's miserable.
Трагичностью и уникальностью. Этот литературный миф быстро укоренился, поскольку он был выгоден как для российской интеллигенции, так и для власти. Для первых это была попытка придать народу более высокий статус в культурном и философском плане. Для вторых – инструмент для укрепления национального самосознания и легитимации власти. Миф о загадочной русской душе оказался идеальной конструкцией для поддержки имперских амбиций России. Он не только объяснял и объясняет жертвы и потери, но и оправдывает агрессию. Ведь если русский народ столь уникален и страдателен, значит он вправе диктовать свои условия и защищать свои границы любыми средствами. Этот миф создавался и культивировался в литературе, но позже стал мощным инструментом в руках власти, которая использовала и использует его для манипуляции народным сознанием и оправдания своих действий. Если миф о загадочной русской душе исчезнет, Россия рискует исчезнуть вместе с ним, ведь без этого искусственно поддерживаемого образа страна будет вынуждена столкнуться с суровой реальностью, которая разрушит ее имперские амбиции и лишит ее той мистической идентичности, на которой она веками строила свое существование. Но этот миф обязательно исчезнет вместе с проигрышем России на полях российско-украинской войны. Аминь, Россия.
Okay. I will now put myself on again. Wait, why is this cam on? Hello? Show me this thing. Oh, here we are. Nice. Ta-da! Magical. We're back. I hope everything's fine now. Okay, so I was asked to summarize this video, and the video is basically he didn't focus on the religious aspect, but today it's definitely that, especially if you read Yevich and everything. But yeah, how do you keep this together? How do you keep the country aimed at something when you don't want to give any freedoms or any like material benefits to your people except the elites?
Okay, I think it would be pertinent to start at the beginning slightly. Maybe not at the beginning, but like.
Okay, you do it then because you watched this for the first time ever, and what did you understand?
Okay, so I mean, with the other things I know about the Russian Empire, everything was even during the 19th century. Obviously, you had the Russian Empire was backwards compared to every other empire. They abolished serfdom very late.
I'm sitting like this because of the mic here.
Yes, so thusly, it was already on a back foot compared to all the other empires in Europe. I would say compared to even such old slobbering giants like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which fucking collapsed during World War One. But the question, I guess the question which I did not, and this is directly. Yes, it is a potato cam. I agree. That's what happens when you stream on a laptop. And
not my usual laptop.
And
either.
not your, yes, because that is all in his house, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away. But the question is, so you have this old little giant empire, right? Okay, it slowly but surely tries to modernize during the late 19th century, as in like it industrializes at least some of it, some parts, like the Baltics, especially Baltics, Finland, massive industrialization. But then the question gets raised. For example, even if we don't even go further than like 1900, why did the Baltic populations and the Finnish population had such high literacy rates, such high education rates, compared to the Russian Empire proper, which had such abysmally low ones?
Well, the answer is
why is the disparity so large?
Because of the local ruling class, literally because of autonomy, and that we had Baltic German nobles, or Polish nobles in Latgal the case. Finland had their own Nordic stuff. It was a different attitude there because the serfdom as such wasn't like monolithic as well. It was like there was a different attitude because like the local Baltic Germans, they were the ruling class, yes, but they actually managed to associate themselves with this place even today. They all moved away in 1939, but you can see them coming back, and they related to this location.
Oh yeah, of course, because they lived here for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Meanwhile, in Russia, imagine this, which I always use as an example. Imagine that it is considered a faux pas for Russian elites to drive Russian cars. Where do you think Russian made?
Okay, but I would say that's a bit later.
No, but that has been all over the place, constantly.
Okay.
They all spoke in French in St. Petersburg.
No, that is true. That is like...
And the idea is that they didn't really consider them because this ownership. Because there was this book I think I covered a couple of years ago. This compared directly chattel slavery in the United States plantations and serfdom over there. And where the families of the slave owners lived right next to the slaves on plantations, and there was like that stress. Here, everyone lives in St. Petersburg by the model of Versailles. So if you're a noble, you live in St. Petersburg. You have to. And meanwhile, you own not like a person; you own a village in total. And then that's the whole thing. It's personless, and you have a pomeshchik. I don't even know how.
What is a pomeshchik?
Vagars, who was that in?
That's a
local superintendent, local manager,
local like big man, I would say. To put it in very simple terms.
Pomeshchik literally translates to someone who's put in the place, someone who runs the place, basically.
Yes.
And no one really before the Bolsheviks even tried to figure out something about how it's going on. Like first attempts at modernization actually happened after Napoleonic Wars, when the Decabrists and everything, when they went back home from France and decided that all this backwardness is horrible. At the same time, they have a bunch of czars changing around. I don't remember the order, everything specifically, but it went from reformist being blown up, then it was a very hardliner, and it was like messy. It was very messy in general. All this
because after the Napoleonic Wars. Especially our region, right, the Baltics. That's when we started to develop at a very high rate, because you had the old medieval walls were finally destroyed, And then the Riga as a city started to actually develop in the late 19th century, which then eventually became the industrial powerhouse it was at the beginning of the 20th.
Yeah, it's just the kind of disparity between what happened in the vast Russian Empire was so vast that again it already treated all of its Siberian regions as basically its colonies. And you might as well ask, well, imagine if, again, I like to use this example, if British Empire just decided to just annex India and make it a full-on state. I mean, Yorkshire, Leicestershire, and then you have Calicut, basically. What do you do?
Yeah, it's almost like the French experiment when they made Algeria a part of mainland France.
Dude, we still have mainland France on next to Brazil. Which is there for space reasons, by the way.
No, I know. That's where the European Space Agency has their launch site. I think an important fact, though, is also to mention is in this more contexty situation would be that serfdom, which did play a massive role in why the Russian economy was so backwards so late, was that in the Kurzemes and Vidzemes gubernia, which are the two of the Latvian provinces.
Courland and Middle Earth.
Courland and Middle Earth, yes. Their serfdom got abolished in 1817, 1819, so at the beginning of the 19th century, while in Latgale, which was a part of more, I guess, core Russian territory, because it was part of Vitebsk.
Yeah, it was part of Vitebsk because, again, we're the region with its own differences, and all the while Vitebsk, this governorship existed, still Daugavpils and Rezekne were much bigger than Vitebsk.
No, that is true, but it was more directly controlled by St. Petersburg.
Yeah,
and their serfdom only got abolished in 1861.
I mean,
that is a massive 40-year gap.
We only follow American trend. It's a thing that you take this mass of people, and then the war ends and the system is done. And at the end of this empire, they try to build this nationalism, imperialism, and nationalism, conservatism, holiness, the trinity of very hardliner values. But the thing is that it always stands because if Russia is viewed as this ideal, as this sacred goal, because it really is a religious, in my opinion, and I have a bunch of arguments here. Because he didn't really connect it together with the Third Rome idea. Because back when this video was made, Putin hadn't made a bunch of speeches there.
Fair enough.
I think that they try to basically play this on that Russia needs to win, and in that way it represents the greatness of the empire, basically. And everyone is told what do you do? If everyone is suffering, everyone is poor, you can do two things. You can either improve people's lives, allow them to improve their lives themselves, or you can tell them that suffering is good, actually, and turn it into a virtue.
Would you say that virtue in the sort of Russian ethnos began before the 20th century? Where do you think it was where was the origin of it? Because I think that's a very core part of the argument of why things are the way they are.
Well, look, the suffering and toughness part is a bit. Or the one question I've seen this. Basically, if you remember, even before that, there was this going to the people, this event where a bunch of Russian liberals, just like Navalny's team today, they went to the deep countryside and tried to provide liberal ideas for the people. They were all beaten up and promptly reported to this thing. The Tsar is kind of the holy thing. It's because if you don't see the person who owns the whole village and the serfdom, you just instantly think that it's the local pomeshchiks. But if only the Lord would know in Petersburg, then it would be better. And also everyone is massively superstitious, and I think it starts before that. It's in a way.
Does the Russian Orthodox Church have anything to do with it? And their massive power over how things are run and done, especially outside of the major cities.
Well, the Third Rome idea was very alive. I mean, remember the Crimean War? It was that too happened, and they have always they always wanted to capture Constantinople because then they have the ecumenical patriarchate, right? And then they control everything. they really think that they must be the third. There's this saying which is always there. After all, it is Rome because it's Tsar. Remember this?
Oh yes. It's their Caesars.
It's their Caesars, and technically speaking, by the way, starting with Peter the Great, it becomes the emperor because he went to the west and such.
Yes.
But by the way, in this cultural segment, Peter the Great is viewed as very. They praise Ivan the Terrible and Stalin, but Peter the Great gets kind of pushed aside. They call him great. They try to avoid talking about him because he actually tried to do some reforms, do everything Western, but he succeeded at this because it's kind of a counterexample.
True.
And he also wasn't very nice and friendly towards the church.
No.
So if you've noticed everywhere else in the world, you learn about Peter the Great's conquest, the Great Winter War, but in Vatnik cases, that's the one emperor that they never even, they talk about like tangentially, something, but they never go into detail because that would sort of disrupt their whole thing.
I mean, the Great Northern War was what basically eventually made the Latvian provinces, a part of the Russian Empire.
Yeah, in 1721, and that's also where serfdom in this sense starts, because then we get the Russian-style serfdom.
Yeah.
Previously, the whole thing called Klausches was similar to you basically got told how much you have to produce, and there was like one worker that you need to work the field over there, but there was no. Like you could demand in the previous system with Baltic Germans, and also let's be honest here, a bunch of pre-Peter the Great, 13 Curonian tribal chiefs, some of them still alive and kicking, Tontagod, and the very same Yanni the Kursit is coming from one of them too.
Yes.
And they didn't care about they just adopted this situation, but you didn't own the peasant. You demanded resources from him, but that was the limit of it.
Yes, and the noble class was all Baltic Germans. Yep. Almost except Lavgal, which is always the exception in almost all of these cases.
And by the way, Latgal plays into why it's different. Why it's Vitebsk province. It also plays into, if you've read you have read it, but maybe you haven't on Substack about why Belarus is the fourth Baltic state.
Yes.
I mean, it is much closer geographically and kind of culturally to the Baltics than it is to the other side of the big forest. Really,
it was a part of most of the territories of Belarus were part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Also, another thing, you know why province is called Vitebsk province? Because Vitebsk is the furthest inland Hanseatic city that they had over there. It's still one of those.
It was a Hanseatic city.
Yeah, because rivers. Like I told you, the river network is insane.
Also, for context, the Hanseatic Alliance, it was a medieval trade alliance between cities in the Baltic Sea.
It's bourgeoisie, bourgeoisie embodied basically. Their main competition was the Dutch.
Oh yes,
the Dutch.
Yes. But it was quite successful for it was a part of why Riga got so wealthy as it did was because of the Hanseatic Alliance.
Yeah, but the thing is that they are constantly being told that suffering is good and all that, and then I've been thinking about this and spoken to this with Evita. If your country deteriorates and living there is shit, you have to invent something to justify this, because the core of all the situation is some sort of bizarre inability to admit that you have been wrong. The situation that you can't admit your mistake goes through and permeates Russian culture. It is the biggest thing. This is why, for example, in Russian companies, you are not just a leader as a boss. You are literally divine overlord. Which is why everyone is trying to hide and they don't solve these issues. The fact that it is considered a massive humiliation and a total loss of faith to the nth degree to admit that you have done something wrong.
Yeah.
And if you have been put into this situation where using the Orthodox Church today as the source of this great idea for which we are all suffering, because all this greatness of Russia, this imperial thing, it answers the question, okay then, we are tough and we can suffer, but why are we doing this? If you've noticed, that is also a question that Vatnik asks constantly, why are we paying all this price? What are we getting?
What are we getting out of it?
Yeah, which is why they are totally not satisfied with just the ruins of Pokrovsk and the battle.
No, of course, because they have a legacy of a massive empire, which was taken very, very seriously, all up until basically the late 80s. Because obviously the Soviet Empire was just a continuation of the Russian Empire,
Yeah, but notice also the fact that it has been every Vatnik starts, like Maxim Kalashnikov. I'm just going to pick him because I know him best.
Yeah, of course.
They always view the collapse of the Soviet Union as the massive tragedy because to them it was the collapse of their best life. And to be honest, we have to give them credit. I'm just checking. I'll answer the question.
Yeah, we'll finish this up.
The idea is that if your country collapses and you do, if there is no empire, then there is no point of all the suffering that they have been enduring all this time.
Because the Soviet Union also, just to skip ahead slightly, but it was also very much based on the extraction of resources. Just like you mentioned earlier, it's like a colonial system, which is there have been Latvian historians who have, especially one who is a...
You mean my old course mates? I think
I don't know if it's the same guy. I think he's slightly older than you though. But he is a petniks in the University of Vidzeme, and
the one who studied the KGB, how much money we gave to the army and that stuff.
Yes, the guy who calculated how many losses we had, because even though during Soviet era we obviously even though we were an agrarian economy basically. Even up until 1939, as in our most major, economic sector was agriculture.
Bacon and butter, as they say.
Bacon and butter, yes.
And I do have to say, I will have to anger our fellow Latvians here. If we look at if Soviet Union hadn't invaded, we would have just gone on like that. Our economy would be utterly trashed.
Oh no, it would have collapsed.
It would be horrible.
Yes, but basically, and then during the Soviet era, we got massively industrialized. We had these massive. I don't know how to translate it, but all union companies, or I don't know, I guess yes, like state companies which were directly controlled by Moscow, not by local Latvian SSR, and they were compared to the Latvian population, they were extremely large and they were extremely unproportional to what to the size of Latvia. Which is why we had so many large industrial plants, and our economy was turned from, in a couple decades, it was turned from an agricultural economy, which obviously also was destroyed by collectivization.
Well, truth to be told, we did have some industry previously, but that was high, as you would say in these days, high value added stuff.
Yes, mainly in the city, mainly in a couple cities.
Look, we had a Ford car factory here, Ford Vairogs, local model, and also we can't forget a Minox invented by a Baltic German in VF factory.
It was we had small but very good products, but this was mass scale, because the largest economical sector became steel making.
Yeah.
By the 60s.
And they built this is a thing that everyone gets work, right? But Latvia has no iron ore basically.
No.
They had to import
it does
this.
not make sense to have steel plants in this country. We have but it was obviously a part of colonization policy, because they could extract all of this massive, and even during the Soviet time, the idea that living in quote unquote Pribaltika was, that was the West. That was the West within the Soviet Union.
As it was called, the internal West.
The internal West, yes, where quality of life was, even compared to the rest of the Soviet Union, much, much higher.
Yeah, this is the thing that as Russians look at their own situation over there, they're like, why are the people in the Baltics complaining? It used to be so good. The problem is, in the interwar period, at least for a while, we actually had some growth, and we were about on the level of Belgium and Netherlands.
Yes, and also
we have documented cases of immigrants from UK coming in to work in our factories.
Yes. We had a very, very, very educated population. Proper systems, an actual, at least for most of our First Republic, we had an independent, democratic republic and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the amount of money that was roughly calculated, that was extracted, because of course most of the things that we made in theoretically Latvian factories during the Soviet time was all exported to the Soviet Union, like 90%, depending obviously on the industry.
If you know something about the Amber Room in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, yeah, hello there, all that stuff from here.
Yep.
And this. Oh, okay, I'll answer the question. Literally,
All right, fair enough.
What's the path for people out of that mindset? Actually, I agree with this guy. They will not change until they get a military defeat. 1905 revolution started after the Russo-Japanese War. They will have to come to terms and sort of admit mistakes in a way. There is no coming out of this mindset while Russia exists in its current borders.
I don't think they've had a legitimate defeat since when I mean a legitimate defeat, I mean a mass scale defeat which actually impacts them severely since basically Napoleonic Wars.
I'm reading Cost Pip writes, mysterious Russian soul is nihilism, nothing means anything, life is not for living, everything is miserable, no one can do anything about it and we all die. That is the whole thing, but I like to make a joke here. No, that would be Belarusian, they're more nihilistic. But in the sense, yes, but the soul is defined of, everyone knows this, everyone understands this, everyone knows it's shit. Yeah. But, however, admitting that they are wrong is a horrible sin, because Russia is literally a divine entity, this higher goal, this empire. So it can't make mistakes because it's literally about the same as admitting I don't know that the Pope make mistakes or such.
Okay, all right.
We watched this documentary about this when the Jewish people had their own catastrophe with this fake false Messiah.
Yes.
And if you think about the impact, the whole defeat is gonna have on Russia, a proper one, that's gonna be comparable to that.
I would say so. It is because the Russian Empire has never been properly. Let's just say that it's been scarred, but it's never been properly stabbed.
What reward awaits the faithful once the kingdom arrives? The arrival of kingdom is the reward.
Yeah.
That literally, because when you watch Yuriyevich, he always says 52 states are fighting against this. It's always about that. If there would be some reward, then the special military operations actually have some fulfillable goals.
I have an odd analogy, but I think it might work. Which is, the way to think about it is this, where it's like, you know how Americans are very proud of their nation, of their country, of how they are the democratic beacon in the world and all that stuff. But the Russian people have they similarly feel extremely great about the Russian state, but without any of the benefits.
Joe So Slow, by the way, is making an adept comparison, because if you look at the title of this episode, it is very intentional there. It is very, very, very so, yeah.
Yes, that is a very good point. That is not too different from Mav's guy A42, not too different from ordinary people with no investments being proud that the stock market is doing well. Yeah.
See,
that is a very good comparison.
We'll get to Russian economy at the end, but the whole idea why I named this episode this way is that if you look at them, I mean, imagine talking about literally ISIS. What is ISIS victory? The caliphate thing. Well, now imagine that Russia is basically this caliphate in the same sense, basically.
Okay, yes, but we'll get there. We still have to
the video part, yeah.
No, not even the video. We'll go till 1917, and we'll watch the next video.
1917, yeah.
So 1900, you have this. Then you have in 1905, you have the first ever massive uprising in the Russian Empire. How does that go?
I will respond if Mav's guy presses the like button over there. That's important. The whole thing happens because, and it is triggered literally by the loss of Russo-Japanese War, because that's the final point. Someone also posted there, read me the question later, the idea is that Russia loses and then everything suddenly collapses because people don't know what to do. Here people see it as an opportunity to get better lives and everything. Social democratic ideas are...
It was like an opening. Yeah. It was an opening that was never there before, and I mean we still have, even it happened here as well.
It's the classical case of in 1905 people demanded reforms and autonomy and better rights.
Yep.
than the very very traditional king, as in France, as in everywhere, he refuses to give in the inch. So a couple of years later, he has to he gets sent to the happy place with the nice people.
Yes.
And after
Because I think one of the this is an interesting misconception about that gulags are a Soviet invention, but gulags existed also during the Russian Empire.
do you know where actually Russia? It's very curious. Well, another comparison. Do you know where they learned how to build that stuff? From the British, because of the Boer War in South Africa.
That makes sense. That makes sense. It all goes back to the Anglo-Saxons.
I mean, Tsar Nicholas II was cousin to Queen Victoria and also to the German Kaiser, which is just somewhat bizarre.
No, he was the descendant.
Something.
There was no.
They all spoke to each other's family.
Kaiser, the Kaiser Wilhelm II, the Tsar Alexander, and King George V. They were all cousins, because their lineage all goes back to Queen Victoria.
Yeah, but that's another little thing, because all of these lineages had become so intertwined that look, they were buddies with their own people, their family, relatives, rather than whatever those dudes are.
But okay, so 1905 fails. I think that's
tons of blood and nastiness.
Tons
there
of
was
blood
also
and nastiness.
decadent uprisings and local stuff, but let's just talk about.
Yeah, but that's done. So then you have. To be fair, there's one thing that does happen because of the 1905 revolution, which is the first ever.
MDL says the Brits were the first to call the concentration camp. Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about design. He took this idea of, looky, nice little camps. Let's make them work. That stuff.
Yes.
The whole idea, not specifically political prisoner thing. Mm-hmm. Political prisoners went to Australia.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm of course joking. It's just that I have to.
You have to poke the Australians. That's fair. But there's one thing that does happen, even though it eventually gets not shut down, but basically sidelined almost immediately. But it does come into play later, which is the first ever parliament of Russia that has ever existed.
Zemstvo, yes, the whole idea of this mess. It was
because I think it's important to understand that Russia never had democratic institutions of any kind. At all, because for example, again, the closest comparison you can do is.
Are we in 1917 already?
No. At this point, we're in 1905. We're in 1905, because the original parliament, I think, was set up after 1905. But it was basically almost immediately shut down by Tsar Nicholas when he cracked down.
The experimentation with more all this third path has been done constantly.
Yes, but like for example, the Baltic provinces, again, because that's the most simple example to use, because within the empire, we did have land councils and gentry councils and even like the famous Riga, which was it was only for rich, noble Baltic Germans, but it did create a lot of the base because even the Latvian Parliament in 1918 it eventually was set up in the old what is that house called? It's like the old basically the old land council of Livonia.
Also, I think we Americans did the reservations earlier. Well, look, we were the Indians in the reservation over here. We're the tribal people who just,
This whole country, this whole region was a reservation.
Basically, we were not allowed to. Fun fact: we were not allowed to blur. We were not allowed to use our own language. You couldn't speak Latvian in Riga. It's a whole mess there.
Yes.
But
that fails. Then we go forwards.
What happens in between is that a bunch of people move away to Switzerland, and we have Russian emigre community, the first kind.
Yes.
Also, a lot
of the intelligentsia that were involved in 1905.
Also, a bunch of revolutionaries move abroad, including my favorite Edward Ledskalnin, who's the guy that built the Coral Castle in Florida eventually. Also, Peter the Painter moves to UK and forms a gang.
The little Latvian people across the world which do amazing things for some reason,
and you never get taught about them in school. I will not put my leg up there anymore. I just
that was perhaps not the best idea.
Sorry, I am. It's because of how I sit here. But
But okay,
this is better.
that happens. Okay, then obviously 1914, big
But
war.
you know what really starts all this mess, which is another reason why the party actually split and said, first of all, they literally overran the first democratically elected the council that read the constitution. Bolsheviks just arrived and stormed it eventually, but the war started. The internal struggle started because of the Brest-Litovsk peace, which basically
Okay, but
was
okay,
like,
you've already skipped ahead, which is like we have 1914, World War One,
Yep.
1917, the February Revolution. Okay, and then now you
the February revolution happens and Russia tries democracy.
Russia tries democracy for the first time ever, because the first attempt was actually a complete failure.
The big problem is that they are about as effective as modern day I don't know Kari Kasparov and other those
They
people.
were intellectuals who lived in St. Petersburg, and only knew had traveled all across Europe and done all these things, but didn't know actually the people they were ruling over. Would that be a fair assessment?
Another thing is that due to the whole cultural thing, you'll notice this today. It's like they have to show off that they have been in the West. The same thing is that Michael Naki always reminds us that he's the United States citizen.
Oh
he
yes,
doesn't
of course,
speak
of course,
English.
yes.
This idea.
I would say that started with Peter the Great, most likely, because because his upbringing was he traveled across Europe, and that's where he got all the ideas to do what he did.
Yeah, but the whole problem is that the democratic liberal forces manage, and they have continued onwards to this day. They have managed to fail so miserably and be so inefficient and actually so made of utterly people with too idealistic worldview without any touch of reality and who are constantly being holier than thou. That is a thing that has existed all the time. They always have to show in your face that they are more educated than you, and that they are bringing you everything from above, all this stuff, which is why the negative attitude towards all this mess happened.
Which means, obviously later on, October Revolution, the bada bing, bada boom.
October Revolution, and then we have Bolsheviks in power.
Yes.
And Bolsheviks, up until this point, we have orthodoxy through the Tsar and all this Tsar monarchy and all this mess.
Yeah.
If you notice, put the leg down. The Bolsheviks, they tried to eliminate all this mess, but they replaced it with zealous Bolshevism when they went out and told people how to read from Marx's books, and they had their Bezbozhnik newspaper. They literally fought against this religion. This whole communism idea was an idea to replace monarchy with the religion that was massively pushed down.
Also, of course, land and bread.
And the thing that why
not easy, not hard to bribe the Russian people.
And why Lenin is actually not loved much less than Stalin, because Lenin signed the Brest-Litovsk peace deal, so that they managed to. And then a huge mess started with, in total, throughout the war, throughout the whole period here, the Soviet Civil War, which was war against Ukraine, Poland over here in the. It's about 23 different separate sides that ally each other, and it's a whole insane mess.
One day we should definitely do a stream about the Latvian independence war, because that is a doozy.
I did a podcast episode. I did a podcast thing about it during my Lenin's biography. It took me 3 episodes, which are about 4 hours in length.
I mean, we can. Okay, if you want a detailed version of this, then of course you can listen to those episodes. But
I literally
we might do a little.
I literally cried while doing this, because every historical document we have about this is written for, like, you follow, for example, what happened in Mongolia with Alexander Drampa. Okay, he's there, not related, just funny. Like we have one aspect, and then you follow through the events, and you have this timeline, and then at the timeline someone appears who was like allied with them 2 pages before, and it's because they just the mess is
okay. But that's the Russian Civil War. I'm just talking about.
But it's the bigger total.
The bigger total picture, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean just doing one on Latvian independence war, which even though the territory was small, we got the most.
But let me remind you that when we're talking about Latvian independence, there were a lot of Latvians fighting for the whole Soviet ideals, because at that point because
Red Riflemen.
First ever Soviet guard, Lenin's personal guards. Seriously, they were Lenin's personal bodyguards and everything. And up until Stalin's purges, Latvians were among, like, I think it was the second nationality represented in the oppressive system in Czechia after Jews.
From there comes the joke, the fact that we both built the Soviet Union and we also destroyed it.
Yeah, because
which is
the-
slightly funny.
But at that point, you also have to understand that the people are just tired and they really believe in those ideals in a lot of cases.
I recently watched a documentary film about the Latvian Red Riflemen, who it was like from the early '80s, and that was when some of them were still alive, and yeah, they even interviewed a couple people that were not Red Riflemen but who were in the area, and they were all. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard as much praise being told about any group of soldiers in the Soviet Union as those people were telling how because the Latvian Red Riflemen they were basically the elite squad of the Soviet.
It's not easy being the elite squad when you can actually understand multiple languages and can read written orders.
Yes, and then they traveled all across the Soviet, so they were known. And most likely, if the Red Riflemen weren't there, then who knows who would have won the war?
It's Red Riflemen and sailors in St. Petersburg. Yeah, it's a whole mess. And then, by the way, the tragedy here starts for Belarus, because at that point, Belarus we got our independence, but Belarus got annexed, which kind of instantly.
I mean, half of it was in Poland. But the other half was in
It's a huge mess. What wasn't in Poland? Vilnius was in Poland.
Vilnius was in Poland, but I think some territories which are now Belarus were in Poland at the time. Because at that time we actually had a land border with Poland.
Yeah, for a while.
Where currently our Belarusian border is.
So technically speaking, all this started, and if we look at this mentality issue. The fact that Russia lost land was also the big thing. Brest-Litovsk peace is seen as Lenin's biggest fault. Not like massive starvation, war, communism, all this stuff. Then everything happened. Another reason is that he instituted the NEP, the new economic policy, which is this, because after he tried war communism with people like Trotsky in power, it went to hell and back completely.
It was not effective, no. And I guess, but at the end of. Okay, let's now go at the end of the Russian Civil War, which is obviously they regained most of their territories, which they had lost, but they obviously lost Finland, the Baltics, and Poland.
If we're being roughly speaking, yes. Also, modern day Moldova was in Romania.
Oh, it was in Romania. Yes, fair enough.
And please forgive me, dear Ukrainian viewers, but I don't have a map in front of me. I'm not at home. I feel so awkward that I just can't reach and pull out the book about this subject over there.
He does not have any of his resources or equipment.
This is purely for my art. Over there, by the way, in Ukraine for a while that we had something similar to actually independent anarchist communes. Same as the Civil War.
Yes.
But all this happens, then the NEP starts. But then Lenin just dies. He passes away, and then we have other issues. Then we have Trotsky, and then Stalin takes power. And Stalin decided that all this idea, the weakness of NEP, was that it gave too much independence to people, because he also didn't understand how to control this and make this all industrialized. Yes. And then this whole idea happens about the enemies of the people and massive purges and all this stuff. Although previously Lenin already had started killing the kulaks. Less workers, though. Lenin didn't oppress people who were proletariat, but he was really very angry about farmers. This is where the kulak comes from. Also, because literally kulaks stole Lenin's family's cow in a bad winter at one point. That's a thing. But the idea that
Lenin's policies were more ideologically based than Stalin's was.
The idea was that Lenin wanted to break the backbone of independence of the farmers who grow their own food. That lasted in the Soviet era, because if the party noticed, even up until very late, that you live in the countryside and that your random duobe, shrubbery, is it?
Like I don't know.
The line in the land the sand where you place in plants and then they grow. I think it's shrubbery.
It's not shrubbery. Shrubbery is like a little green thingy.
Basically, if you're a tiny little plot of land where you could grow
yes, where you grow your
the kolkhoz would just arrive and bulldoze all over the place. Communism, when the kulaks steal your cow. Yeah, that is the whole idea. The big issue is that they started the plan. Stalin went back on NEP. If you want to know about NEP, Ilf and Petrov, both of those books about Ostap Bender are great. You can also you can point finger at where this happens, because he wanted to industrialize fully. And a common myth, hedgerow. Well,
I'm translating right now.
It's
No,
it's not a bed.
it's not a bed for sure.
Try DeepL. So Neb gets cancelled, and in a lot of cases in Western sources, this is where Tales of Stalin's Paranoia comes in. However, if you read documentation about what these generals like Tukhachevsky and other people, Tukhachevsky's like what they actually offered and what they wanted to do, they would have. It wouldn't have been that well done over there, because Tukhachevsky wanted to build really tankets of First World War basically over there. But Stalin industrialized the country with massive losses and casualties because he wanted to do it quickly. Let's not get into World War II massively at this point, because that is going to be a horrendous topic about Stalin.
But what can be said is that that is where a lot of the, I guess, modern myths of the invincible in quotes, Russian military and army and how they are. It gave their military forces and their army like a noble goal idea. Basically creating a myth around them.
Also there's a popular truth that people forget. I mean, yes, Stalin killed a bunch of people, but who wrote 50,000 who wrote all those reports on their neighbors and everything?
The people themselves.
That's a whole other can of worms. But Stalin built this, and one thing about the cult of personality of Stalin, which we spoke yesterday about, is that
yes, a furrow. It is a furrow. A furrow.
I have now learned a new word in English.
Yes. So have I.
Stalin's cult of personality was very different than that of Hitler's. It was based differently since Hitler based everything on himself, but Stalin's cult wasn't pushed by Stalin himself. It was literally by fear, because that was the normal thing. It was massive attempts at loyalty. Stalin himself viewed the position more important as him, the man, at that point.
Yes.
He's a monster and everything, but he tried to make the position strong, which is why General Secretary was the lead. You know him, that position as the leading position of the Soviet Union, but that is so because it literally started as the secretary of the party.
Yeah, as literally the secretary. Yeah.
He just didn't bother to change those positions, and then he built all this system. And of course, then we got all this infusion with socialist ideas, building the new Soviet man, all this collectivism and fully new ideology there.
And how? But the question is, how does before then we'll watch the next video. But it's like, how does the I guess now that we've gone a bit through the early Soviet years, how did the Russian mentality change, adapt, evolve?
Well, look, it has evolved to the sense that at least...
But let's say up until World War II.
Okay, up until World War II, people are actually not that happy. This is why there were those massive education campaigns, cultural stuff, all this mess. Because the starvation was horrible. The view on Stalin has changed now, because at that point people really didn't really like all that stuff. Also, this is the point where Понятия start as such too. And now it's been just glorified and turned into another myth, since Stalin now sits behind Nikki II because he built the largest empire, and the fact that he sent everyone to gulags and industrialized. Well, you can easily justify taking the old myth about why we suffer, yes, but then we do great things if we suffer.
And that myth was justified because a couple decades later you had the World War II, which was as in Russian lexicon, the Great Patriotic War.
The Great Patriotic War, and that is the central object of veneration, because that allowed Russia to reach its greatest extent.
No, there's one more thing, which is, could you expand on, for example, Russian, because the Soviet Union, it comes from communism and socialism, which was by its basis at the time very internationalist. Why? What was Stalin's I guess maybe idea or goal by actually using nationality and using nationalism in a communist country?
This is fun because he was opposed to Lenin, who was more about making republics according to their national borders, like in our region.
Yeah.
Stalin, however, decided that all this is kind of a big nonsense and a mistake. invaded his native Georgia, decided to start a campaign of Russification, because if he would use aspects of the Tsarist era Russian people, he's literally written that the Russians are easier to control because of all this previous baggage. He adopted this.
So he just took it over.
Also, he made, although he redrew the map of the Soviet Union, this is why you had all these issues with Armenia, Azerbaijan, all this mess where he just redrew the borders, ignoring everything. Basically, what the British and French did to the Middle East, he did internally to all those people.
I think probably, I guess the only reason why we were spared is because we were only annexed during World War II.
Yeah, after that,
which is why we got added as our borders were.
But all these borders basically were mostly meaningless at that point. Stalin internally just organized this so that the amount of national republics would be much lessened. It wasn't beneficial to that. So and today all this has been turned, because all those people throughout the Soviet years, up until Putin started with his ascension, there were Vatniks, yes, but they weren't as prominent as they're now. They were complaining that everyone's going in the West liberal values, but there was Yeltsin Center and a lot of conversation about, people remember this stuff, because 25% of the whole country had someone who had either been to prison or had a family member. It was ingrained everywhere.
Yes.
Soviet Union was also the only country where their border guards had massive amounts of artillery battalions and tanks, but they were all turned and they were aiming inwards. They were there to keep the people out.
Keep the people
in.
Keep the people in. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
it's just, and the thing is that right now this has been adopted and turned, and this is the slash happened in 2008. Because previously, when people who actually fought in the war and were adults there, as you all know, there was this. So, самое главное, чтобы не было войны. The most important thing is so that there would be no war. It was a Memorial Day. Then it switched to we can repeat this. Можем повторить. What can they repeat? They can repeat the glory to the biggest extent and Russia's most massive military victory.
Because the people who actually fought in the Red Army in World War II were not really fans of war.
See, at that point in the current Russian mythos, this greatness and success over there, it legitimizes everything, because that is their greatest victory, and that proves that the Russia is great and can be again, and all this stuff. And that this is why also the collapse of the Soviet Union is such a tragedy, because it kind of nullifies this great achievement.
Yes, because they suffered through the 20s, 30s, to then go into the 40s and have this, massive victory at the end of World War II.
Also, attitude, because we were added much later, was that when the 90s arrived, over here we still had an older generation who had lived in or Latvia, my grandparents, which wasn't a thing, say, in Belarus, in Russia itself. They
did not have a living memory to a time of independence, because, to be fair, their independence was very, very short.
Also, psychologically speaking, the interesting fact is that every other republic had its own higher council. Latvia had its own local, basically
our
state
Supreme Soviet.
Supreme Soviet, basically state governorship or local thing. But all the orders came from Moscow. They were the big guys, the central one. But Russia itself, the central part, it was controlled directly by what Americans would call federal government. They did not have this. They did not have these two levels of this.
Yes.
Therefore, if for everyone else it came we take our existing part and separate, for them psychologically it felt like a breakage of
people something. Their empire was in a matter of 1 year, basically. Just they lost how many percent of their territory? What they considered their territory.
It's not about the territory; it's about the population. If you remember,
that's true as well.
Population size is ridiculous. Currently, technically, on paper, Russia still claims 147 million. That number is no longer accurate at all. Russia has apparently lost 1% of its male population in this war.
I think also, of course, a big thing is that they lost a lot of the territories which were. I mean, they lost their breadbasket. They lost their industrial provinces.
Yeah, Siberia is vast, and
it is vast. It is vast, but there's not much. Except just resources, there's much added value there.
Yeah, the problem is that,
which, I mean, in the modern world means more than just having a pure block of iron ore.
The problem is that Russia has always sucked at one thing: logistics. Horribly.
Yes.
So this is a shocker to people, but the Russian army only very recently well, they tried to do this, but up until like last year, there was zero uses of actual like the construction like pallets where you like, do stuff with like the car. Why? Because conscript army they'll carry this stuff. They have to do something meaningless work. It was just not written there. They didn't use those things.
MDL 8767. That's a great point.
There's more money in refinery than in oil.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
That is true. However, again, Moscow has all those refineries and everything, but oil well. That is the thing that Maxim Kalashnikov talks about, because Stalin thought that way. Stalin actually built this industry thing.
Yeah, because he. That is a thing I guess you could say. Like he did it. He did do it. He did it by aggressive, horrible means, which meant
And then
tens of thousands of people died. But
Stalin actually managed to feed most of the country and everything.
Yes.
But then Khrushchev came, and then he did two things. I have made episodes about this, but let me remind you. Okay. He went to the United States and decided that you guys go grow corn there, so we must grow corn everywhere. Problem in our climate, corn only grows to be feed for cattle. It doesn't like mature at all. But it was enforced to be grown in a lot of places, and only those places like the famous kolkhoz, large places in Lielvard, they basically had to like place this corn around the field so that it would look nice from the car.
Yes, because you needed. There was a kolkhoz in Lielvard called Large Place.
This one, yeah.
They make the beer. That's the same one. Which is basically they had but you know what they had in the centrals in Lielvard itself in the central place they had one kind of large cornfield. So exactly when the delegations came with the cars they could see it, but obviously deeper into the field they were growing normal things that people actually needed.
And then you get mass starvation. One thing that I like to add is though. When we talk about industrialization, that is when Holodomor happens, because Ukraine is the most fertile land of all this area, and he didn't really like Ukrainians. So then you have basically the same thing the English did with Ireland. Again, very similar story, where basically all the grain is confiscated and sent off,
He used grain to buy machines and equipment and etc.
But by the way, because of the corn experiment, the Soviet Union went from a grain exporter to a grain importer all the while until like the collapse of the Union. And the second thing Khrushchev did is that he made all these, Soviet competition sounds fun about making the plan, except when he decided to pump agriculture and everyone started competing about how much meat products and meat they can send to the things. The problem is the most famous case was in Perm. I think it was Perm district. One of the owners of kolkhoz overdid the plan by 5 times. Then he shot himself next year. He did all the medals, but then he shot himself because they managed to slaughter not only the animals who were ready for it, all the younger, like all the calves and everything, like milk cows, everyone. Basically, they chopped off everything afterwards because there was like massive starvation and lack of meat too. Khrushchev basically managed to screw over agriculture, screw over all this, all livestock, and then he started the destruction of the Aral Sea because let's turn the rivers around.
Oh right,
that too.
Those projects. Okay.
See, you see, a lot of people consider that Khrushchev was pushed away only because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, but that was just the last straw.
Yeah.
Because Khrushchev, it's called it's called the thaw, because the Soviet Union was even larger than in Stalin's. That Soviet Union's borders with all its nations and everything as a colonial empire. Khrushchev tried to be more democratic and liberal in a way. And then it started to fail miserably because if you don't have this iron-fisted control there, if you don't run it like a czar, then it just doesn't work.
There is quite a sad story about the Khrushchev's thaw. I will say. This is a story. This is. It's going to be a short story, to be fair, but it's a story about because up until.
Oh, I must respond to Avak. They stole Kazakh cows. They stole everyone's cows. They basically did a massive thing. Also, forced collectivization, where also just was horrible, literal famine.
Yeah, in just to make a point, in I think before 1949, there are like a couple hundred kolkhozes being created in Latvia. After 1949, when I don't know how many tens of thousands of Latvians who were considered kulaks and too wealthy, too good of farmers.
You were considered wealthy if you had more than one cow.
Yes.
And if you employed any hired help whatsoever for any process, any part
And
of the
if you hadn't agreed to join a kolkhoz, that was also one of the things. And but yes, after 1949, when tens of thousands of Latvians got deported, especially mainly from the countryside.
And not only Latvians, by the way, Chechens also got like wiped off there.
Didn't know that. But afterwards, I think in the month after the 1949 deportations, there were more kolkhozes being founded than in the previous n amount of years. Because everyone understood, because the Soviet Union was like, well, it gave a signal. Let's just say that much. It gave a signal, and everyone.
And again,
had no option but to
when I say all
comply.
these collective farms, you were supposed to go and grow stuff there, and if you wanted to do something near your own house, the local army guy would just come and bulldoze that stuff.
Yeah, but about Khrushchev's thought. Up until Khrushchev's thought, Latvia was Latvia, like the people in charge of the Latvian Socialist Republic, were Latvian communists. As in, they were people who were communists either already before the war, and they were locals who ran the show. But
They tried to make the best of the situation. Let's put it that way.
Yes. They actually, obviously, it is also their homeland, so they'd actually tried doing things. And problem is, in I don't remember the exact year, but the person who was in charge, or not the person who was in charge, but one of the people from the government of the Latvian Socialist Republic,
Higher council, as it was.
yeah, most likely. They basically, how do I say this? They went a bit too extreme, as in they did a couple of things that even during Stalin's time they would have been shot for, which is acknowledging. No, they made, for example, the communist officials in Riga speak both Latvian and Russian.
Oh yeah.
And they did these little type of things where they were like, oh, but this is Latvia, so maybe we should at least have some Latvianness in the.
I have an example about this. Our national mega celebration, Jāņi, with midsummer, big thing, very important, most important party here. It was totally prohibited as a form of nationalism in Stalin's era.
Yes.
And then in Khrushchev's era, when they started it out, they tried to make it Sovietized. So they wrote our new folk songs,
Yes.
so that you had to sing about the
Yes.
kolkhoz and all this mess. But basically, it was just they tried to kind of counter the policy of Russification.
And what happened was very simple. There were people, obviously, in the who were not big fans of this, even here in Latvia. Usually, people sent from Moscow, and they in a very quick succession, from there onwards, all the quote unquote national communists, as they were called. They were all fired. None of them were again, this is not Stalin's era anymore, so they weren't shot.
Yeah, we like to do forced psychiatric wards. The reason why Soviet government is so good and progressive, so that not liking it means you must be mentally ill.
Yes. No, these guys were, because they were too high of a communist officials, and this was obviously no longer Stalin's era. They were just demoted. They were demoted, put in little apparatchik jobs somewhere in the apparatus, but basically lost any kind of influence and power and were ostracized from there on.
At that time, by the way, one thing happens that Stalin had intentionally created, because in Soviet Union, the secret services did not cooperate at all. There was this Stalin every morning read the reports from various secret services and compared them, and at any moment, if he's this is to root out some sort of, is to root out false information and stuff.
Yeah.
But Khrushchev wasn't competent enough to hold it together, and then we have this famous rivalry starting out where KGB versus the army, the power blocks start to happen.
But yes, but the end of the story, at least in Latvia, with the National Communists, is yes, they got all removed from power because they did because Khrushchev also flew into Riga, and he was given a document about these people and what they had done, and on the way out. He gave the leadership, a little little stern sentence about, you know, how you shouldn't be too nationally zealotous and how that is an anti-communist whatever. And after a few weeks later, yes, all of them got removed from power, and from there onwards, up until basically the 1990s, Latvia was ruled not by local communists or national communists, but by Moscow.
No, they had a strategy because they had actually gathered a bunch of people who were technically Latvians by name only,
Yes.
and sent them here. So like Viktor Salknis is a very Latvian name. Press the OK button for backlight.
Oh, yes.
But they didn't even speak Latvian and everything. And this is a common situation there, because if you speak to literally everyone who was not ethnic Russian from the Soviet era, like everyone, even the older generation, even those who are nostalgic about the Soviet era, even they will tell you how horror stories about Moscow. Even those people who are nostalgic about the whole socialism ideals, all this mess.
Yeah.
It was basically everywhere. Because for everyone who wasn't an ethnic Russian, the systemic destruction and like unification of culture, you were a second-class citizen basically.
Yeah.
You couldn't get like the system of schools education worked differently. There were different privileges. Everyone, and this is a thing that for Russians it's easier and they're more nostalgic about this period because their issues were only economic, if you can put it that way.
Yes, and obviously, and you know, they did get a lot of resources from all their Soviet republics, which were, you know, de facto colonies, which they could extract whatever they needed from them in whatever capacity.
And about those oil prices, that is when the Soviet Union started to, by the way, this is where global politics ties in. Soviets started exporting oil. They made a lot of money from oil. They also used this, but they as a matter of principle for this isolationism, they obviously didn't export like heavy equipment abroad. And about the oil, well, if you thought the slump because of the 70s, all of that oil stuff happening, you know, the situation with the Arabs in Israel, war, that stuff, yeah, when the oil prices at one point fell down, it was pretty horrible. The oil, that also impacted them, and that
was almost, you could say, the beginning shots of the end.
This is where it all kind of went to stagnation period, because when Stalin died, another rulers ruled for so long that everyone who was like a member of this Politburo, basically they put older and older people in power, and Gorbachev was the first leader of the Soviet Union and last one who hadn't participated in the revolution itself,
and he was born within the Soviet Union because all of the other ones were in the Russian Empire, or you know, other Russian Empire.
Soviet officials, so they were granted the plan that they needed to fulfill, but if you did more than the plan, then it was considered awesome and nice, but it was just
what's the
pure.
question?
When
the Soviet was granted the quota of...
Quota me. At the same time, the special separation was also like the so-called nomenclature, the party elites, which had like their own special stores, their own special privileges. They could get all this stuff that was... It was basically it was this feeling that, you know, as Orwell said, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Oh no, there's a story about the Russian army and like the people in it, which I guess sort of ties into our main topic of today, which is when the Soviets occupied Latvia. One of the things there's a popular way to describe it. There were multiple levels of thievery or stealing, as in they in multiple waves they stole everything that the people of Latvia had of any of value.
Dude, I have a simple understanding that they understand. Like, that's exactly what they did to East Germany after the World War II. All the machinery and everything went to straight to Russia.
But but like a little anecdotal, like not anecdotal, but like a thing that happened. You know, we had the premium, I guess at the time it was called the Universal Market, or it was basically a shopping center. A shopping center that was built during Ullman's time. The Army Economic Shop.
Yep.
Yes, and that was like, you know, the peak of you know, Latvian sort of shops and all that stuff. One of the things that the Soviets did, one of the first things they did, is that they equated one Soviet ruble, which was fucking worthless, to 1 lats. which meant that there were thousands upon thousands of Soviet army officials, their wives, other people from the Soviet government who just basically emptied the stores. And there was a thing that one of the shopkeepers said, is that if a year ago we couldn't make people buy things, currently we cannot have enough supply because there's so much demand.
See, that's the issue with their planned economy, where the Soviets planned also not just how much they would make, but they had a tiered system where Moscow and Petersburg got always supplied first. Then there were like the national capitals.
Yeah.
They could prioritize situations where basically they decided how much people are going to eat over there.
Another one of them was when the Soviets took all the private property away, and nationalized all that, and kicked out people of their own flats and apartments in Riga.
Which is interesting, because when I watch some far left people online, they kind of separate private property from like your personal thing. They're like, no, when the communism comes, they want to take away your toothbrush. And I reply to this: if they don't take away your toothbrush, comrade, then that's not communism.
Yeah, and that's what they did, because they literally went into your. There was a commission of 3 people usually with a neighbor as quote unquote.
As in the old joke, one who can write, one who can read, and the third will look over those 2 intellectuals.
Yes. And they basically went to your house. They looked at your stuff and were like, okay, you don't need this, and then they just took it and went away.
Why? Because they had a quota on how many people they needed to shoot and send to gulags.
Yep.
Khrushchev personally was one of those in Kharkiv. Yay!
And then, but there was like, but the irony, of course, as always, is that there was one house where the people of the house got kicked out, and basically a general had moved in, like a general of the Red Army had moved in, and for some reason he had fucking 2 massive pianos that magically appeared in his apartment.
But 2 piano is better than 1.
It is better than 1. But aren't you supposed to not have anything?
Look, they had weirder experiments for a while because of their socialist ideals. I mentioned this in my long dad's episode. They tried to even make music socialistic, in the sense that the socialist music experimental one was they tried to write music where each note could only be repeated after every other was played. It is just awful.
Oh yeah, that was a weird experiment.
This is the whole situation, that at no point sort of the well-being of people was. Everyone was told all the time that look at how well you live and everything, but at no point actually everything was prioritized. And another thing that people don't understand when they think about, like, people remember, oh, Soviet Union had free education. Yeah, but imagine this: the amount of how many people could join the university was extremely limited. It was tiny.
It was very, very limited, and most people had never had access to that at all.
And there's also, of course, this this joke which kind of explains the situation about the tiered system, is that Moscow State University history class people coming to apply and to start this thing. First is a Russian. He's like, what's your name? Ivan Sidorov. Okay, you have to do the entry exam. What's the date today? 28th of August. What was the date yesterday? 27th. Good, you're in. Then let's say a Latvian man arrives, and he gets said, oh yeah, you want to apply, but this is a high-level university. Please name like all the lists of like the most important events from the whole Civil War, and like gets a bunch of lists. Yeah. And also how many people did we lose? How many people did we lose during the big patriotic war? Give us precise numbers. After he does very difficult, but gets in. After him, a Jew comes in. That was the period where the purges happened, and he turns and says, "Yeah, you get the same questions as Latvian, but you also must name those people who died in the patriotic war." That's the whole tiered system was just.
While on all banners it was all equality and all we're all equal and wonderful and we're building a communist paradise. In reality, well, Okay, but how does that play into the actual Russian people? I would say.
Well,
For example, during times of occupation and post-war, where they had this, let's say for now discounting the Russian Red Army soldiers, which were basically looting and pillaging for years.
Well, first of all they say that we deserve it.
Of course.
Secondly, this idea over there, everyone's too busy thinking. In Stalin's era, everyone's too afraid and too busy doing anything meaningful.
Yeah.
But then Khrushchev arrives, and this is why they sort of pushed him out, because the funny man became a bit too funny. But then there's Brezhnev in stagnation, and he sits in power for 18 years, and then the mass like, it's like, what's this happen? Over there, the totalitarianism enters its final stage, where it's like everyone goes to parades, and it kind of deteriorates. The thing is that all this mega nationalism about what's happening currently, that only happened now because the Soviet era is the era where apathy and the fact that you should not talk about politics when that appears. The whole utter apathy that the state will take care of you can't do anything. This is where the nihilism sets in, and then it can be used.
Okay, I see. So basically, after Khrushchev's fall, where they're like, is a bit opening up a bit, but then Brezhnev comes in. But I think it's fair to say that even when Brezhnev was in power, the screws were not as tight on the population as they were during even the latter Stalin years.
No, Brezhnev.
Because he basically just kept the force.
Brezhnev was obsessed with himself, and he was just sitting there. He basically was an old boring man who ruled for 18 years and put a ton of medals on himself, and decided to do smooth sailing and just pump everything into the army.
Yeah, but he didn't really.
The censorship got worse though, and he actually.
Oh yes, it get a bit, but obviously the gulagging of people never really returned. So that was even though the people who did return from the gulags during Khrushchev's thaw, their lives were ruined. They were still branded as.
Do you remember the two-tier system? Yeah, if you survived those 10 years in the gulag, you were not allowed to live up to the distance of 100 kilometers from the biggest cities. Then the rehabilitation, everything is just.
You were branded as an enemy of state, in some fashion, and you could not get a job. You could not get a proper housing.
And let me remind you, 25% of the whole population had at least had a family member or someone. Everyone. This is why everyone knows these понятия, because everyone is familiar with this culture at all times.
Yeah.
And at that point, nihilism and stagnation comes in, because one of the famous documentaries of like the whole late era, just before the perestroika, is a Latvian movie. Is it easy to be young? It's on YouTube with subtitles, and it shows the extreme apathy about how nothing is going to change ever, and there is no point in anything.
Yeah.
This just the whole apathy set in, because there was no idea, because the system seemed inevitable and huge.
I mean, I think a big part of it was that it's just that exactly it was like this big blob, big hippopotamus just kind of trundling along this this road, and it was like it didn't seem like there was an end in sight.
Yeah, and then remember also the economically the planned economy where you focus on 5-year plans just didn't work.
No,
just didn't function, since the example is very like, if it's made by these old men in the Kremlin, no female hygiene product, which is a great example, and many other things just did not exist.
This is a thing which also added another layer on top of all the many problems we have talked about for the Russian population, which is. This already started in the 20s, but obviously went on, especially like here it kind of started in the 40s and 50s, which is the erosion of trust of each other. Oh,
that's also here, by the way. We used to be more extroverted, but if everyone was watching over you constantly, then.
Because you no longer saw your neighbor as someone you could even using like a Soviet language, a comrade of yours, but it was someone to fear. Who knows? Maybe he's a agent for the Czech.
And another little reason is that if you are like a writer or something, That's not a joke. You simply couldn't just start writing music because we already have the local music. Every artist was like assigned to a kolkhoz, had to write. It's a massive stupid system, but the whole despair went to the point that people tried to push back, and they tried to see how far the limits go in art and everything. People learned to read through the lines, so to speak. And why do we know Odessa jokes? Well, because due to these political jokes told in kitchens all over the great union, well, people learn to read between the lines. And when I remember a couple of years ago, someone tried to quote Brezhnev's Pravda newspaper to me, stating how everything was good in the Soviet era, and I didn't even. It's one of those questions where you just can't answer there. Not even. It's like someone quoting Vladimir Solovyov today, claiming that that's the truth.
No, yeah,
it's the
that's
same situation.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, because even like at this point we're quite close now to.
This is where, by the way, constant lying gets normalized.
Oh yes,
everyone is lying to everyone all the time. This lying, and you, by the way, as the factory, the big factory next to your house, as you don't see anything of it if you don't live like in Moscow.
Yeah.
Everything gets sent to Moscow. Like in Belarus, by the way, specialized in food products. They invented the doctor's sausage, and you work in a mega sausage factory, but there is no sausage in your stores whatsoever.
Yep.
It was normalized that you have to steal from your workplace to trade this to other things for
stealing, lying, distrusting of anyone you don't know.
All this criminal connection with everyone going to prisons and Ponyatia being instituted also didn't help.
No, that did not help as well. And it was just exactly. Everything felt hopeless.
And in the sense, this is the whole idea why the mentality is still here, that this idea that doing something honestly and such a thing like feeling loyalty to your company is non-existent, doesn't work. There is no company. There is no company, man. In the USSR.
No.
There is no loyalty. And right now, this also is reflected in the culture. For example, in the Central Asian republics and other places which haven't joined the EU, the automatic reaction, the first reaction when you speak to a stranger isn't like in the United States or Western Europe where you ask someone for help, they'll smile at you and they'll treat you like asking this. You will be viewed with suspicion if you're like not trying to scam them or something. This mistrust.
That's the thing. Even here, it's gotten better. It's gotten better because I think one of the things which should be mentioned is that what saved us, what saved Estonians, what saved the Lithuanians, were our diasporas and our because the thing is we did have the memory of independence, we did have memory of democracy, we did have memory of having our own nation and all that, and we had tens of thousands of people, combining the Baltic populations, hundreds of thousands of people abroad who were well educated. You have the CEOs of companies, academics, etc. So by the time we did regain independence, we had this sort of, I guess in a way, helping hand to get us back on track and get us back to the place we wanted to be in the first place before we got occupied.
Yeah, and this, by the way, all this perestroika mess. Of course, Gorbachev is viewed by Vatniks as the traitor. All this mess that was caused. Basically, the reason is only the people who were in like the perestroika years, 86 and so on. Yeah. These are the people who ran those cooperatives and everything, who made money, were like smugglers and criminals and everything. So making your own small businesses associated with something dirty. Well, not for our generation, but for our parents' generations,
definitely
not seen as bad. If you visit Riga, you'll notice that we have way less mom and pop stores than anywhere else.
Yes.
It's just a weird thing.
It's because obviously all the people.
But now they're increasing, but by per capita.
Yes. It's well. To be fair, at least it is better than in Russia, which again, you could say about a lot of things. But it was like one of those things where it's like I think, and then obviously the last, I guess, drop onto the pie that is the Russian person's mentality, which is the collapse of the Soviet Union and the 90s, because obviously, unlike Latvia, Estonia, even some other less successful nations, I will say,
the privatization was a horrid mess.
It was a horrid mess, but at the end of the 90s, 4 years after the end of the 90s, all three Baltic states joined the European Union. So did a lot of other other post-communist bloc nations, and they started a road to development, and it was there was a clear upward trend. Life was getting better, people were getting paid more, people were getting wealthier, and now we've reached the place now which we're like, at this point we're almost like any other boring Western European country.
And let me, and here by the way, Ukraine comes. Belarus got screwed by Lukashenko when he turned the clock back with the Soviets. But the whole claim that the Secret Service was involved in Maidan, Ukraine in 2014, it's the same thing that they told about Vilnius in back in 1980. It's the same study. Because to them, this country, like, it's just seen as a same separation of this whole system and a betrayal of this mess.
Was it possible for privatization to not be a mess by MTL 8767?
Well, first of all, please press the like button.
Yeah.
Secondly, privatization not be a mess.
I guess, to be fair, it was a mess everywhere.
Who did it the best, though?
Who did it the best?
Well, Russia made the one big mistake where they, in Soviet era, because of planned economy, everything was run by basically megacorps.
Yes.
Super centralized, large
State
businesses.
State
Even today, the result is that whereas in the EU, on average, about 52% of GDP is created by small medium businesses, in Russia the percentage is like 20-25%. Because they like, you didn't privatize the companies, the big state monopolies weren't split up. They were literally just given to an owner for like totally for nothing, basically.
I mean, I will say probably. I mean, the best. Like, who did
Also,
it?
another mistake, which we did and they didn't, which is a political one, which I just remembered. Over here, we made a law which prohibited anyone who had been not just random people who had to write reports on their workers when someone went abroad. Because if you were a decent person, you told, oh yeah, KGB came to me, I'm gonna have to write reports on you. Just don't tell those jokes. I don't want. There were normal people who did this.
Yes.
But if you were an active worker in the KGB institutions and in those oppressive structures, you were not allowed to take political office, which is why Alfred Rubix can't do this and everything.
Yes.
In Russia, no such thing. They allowed the whole administrative apparatus to remain in place. They did not throw the KGB out of this.
Yes,
It is kind of like,
because I guess okay. To be fair, I will say this: a lot of functionaries that were people of some status in the, but usually they were Latvian. I will say, for example, the our famous oligarch Ivars Lembergs. He was the mayor of Ventspils in the 80s already, and he just continued to be the mayor of Ventspils even after independence. So there were a couple people who were in positions of power already, but there was for example, our diplomatic corps was built from scratch, which is, for example, a reason why our current president could achieve the high. I think he was a parliamentary secretary, which is quite a notable position in his like early 30s, I think. Like, most of the diplomatic corps was all it was either people from diaspora.
I mean, same in the media.
Yeah, it was either people from diaspora, or it was just literally just people who are in their 20s, 30s, like they're just fresh potatoes. And yes, I will say fresh potatoes because that's a...
No, potato is good.
Of course, potato
is excellent.
Excellent thing.
But the whole situation is that really the big this whole apathy towards, and again in the 90s, all this mess with utter lawlessness in Russia, because the 90s were a special place. Everyone who was running business at that time were just saying that racketeering, organized crime, huge mess.
I would say that was the case in every former Soviet republic, but I guess the difference is that in some...
Also, Russia had their own issues with the elections in 1993.
Oh, yes. Well, 1993 is when when the very short-lived 2-year Russian democracy died. Well,
also,
not 2 years, 4
also
years.
Boris Yeltsin didn't help with the fact that he decided to drink himself to death completely.
He didn't. He was the man who both brought the Russian people a hope for democracy and also snuffed it out.
But currently the whole idea with Vatniks is that the whole woes of the 90s are... They can't admit that they're doing something wrong, so they don't blame the inefficiency of the Soviet system or any mistakes there or even organized crime. they blame the fact that evil Westerners did something wrong. They must have. So this is why bad. Which is why Ukraine, by the way, is so important to Russia, since even though we have quite a large Russian population, in Russia, percentage-wise, there aren't many Russians with Latvian, Estonian relatives, right?
No.
Although 30% of Russian families have relatives in Ukraine.
The only diaspora we have in Russia is in Siberia.
The thing is,
where the old Gulag.
The thing is, due to how Soviet system worked, 30% of Russian families have relatives in Ukraine.
Yes.
If Ukraine now, who have also joined this Western path, would actually achieve a higher level of life, then people in Russia would find out, and then that would show the fact that, maybe we did something wrong. Maybe we would have to admit mistake. We can't have that nonsense.
Yeah, that is because it would be legitimately the closest comparison, because you could an argument which probably some Russian vatnik has said somewhere, which of course the Baltics we have been bought and puppeted by the United States. They pay us $3 trillion to be all anti-Russia and and hate them, and that is the only reason we are economically successful.
Also, they manage. There is another little thing which sounds cynical, but this comes from Abbott and everything. And there's a saying that Chabi Korova Michala. The idea is that even in Soviet jokes and everything, for in traditional Russian culture, it is more important that your neighbor's cow is dead rather than you have a healthy one. That's the whole idea. It's the because everyone lives poorly, so the doing well and working hard, that's nothing. That's not considered a virtue.
No,
this is a different attitude.
And obviously the 90s. I think this probably didn't help us either, which is obviously.
Also, another reason is the fact that even today, if you work really hard and do something, it doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter.
No, it does. It's not. And after the 90s, unlike in some other former Soviet republics, which did, achieve, maybe not only Soviet republics, also some Eastern Bloc nations.
One thing though, I have to say, in Central Asia, when we talk about places like Kyrgyzstan and everything, before Soviet era, they literally were nomadic tribes.
Yes.
And now this is why they have conflicts between themselves, because they are trying this stuff.
Yeah, but unlike here, where economic prosperity did come, we suffered for a bit, but eventually we got
I do have to say that our government in the early 90s, the generation who are in their 50s now, they're fucked though.
Oh no, they are. Funnily enough, they're the ones in power right now. But we got traumatized people in power. It's great.
And then this is, by the way, where disillusionment happened. It's a whole system that goes through. And right now they're just playing up all these things, and because the people have nothing and everything, you can just give them the glorious empire once again. Go into history
because exactly they never got the economic success. They never got the westernization benefits.
And again,
they just a continuation of the shit they had before, but even worse. Because they didn't have the Soviet...
and to respond to Joe so slow, by the way, he said Russia should build tall instead of wide. The problem is that building tall requires actual work. It's difficult.
That is difficult.
Russia is not about 8-hour work and doing it responsibly. Russia is about making heroic acts, and they'll one more enemy defeated, and they'll be in prosperity. Question mark, profit. And this is all Soviet legacy, because there was no point in working harder. Yep. There was nothing.
And to be fair, a lot of those things existed here as well for decades, which is probably the reason the 90s were as horrible as they were, because the people in power didn't really know how to, quote unquote, do a capitalism, and the people who did were all scumbags.
In my generation, I am a millennial. By Western standards, here I would be called Atmodsbērns, and straight up in the independence. My generation was expected to build democracy and capitalism. But yet, when we tried, we were always smacked on the head and said, "But you can't do this because of all the social values. They must remain in place and all this."
Yes. Which has been. But at the end of the day, I think, of course, the thing that both the diaspora and also the fact that we were violently taken out of the European system in 1940. We did have that little stint of 18-20 years of having an independence, but so we had a goal. We had a goal that was outside of just I don't know, just continuing existence.
Yeah, but the thing here is that seeing as we were always the enemy and the foul Nazis
of
and everything,
course.
it wasn't a surprise. Like if the Russian government in their propaganda always said that we were evil, so it wasn't a surprise for them. They coped with the fact that they lost us and their influence over us more than they could with other countries. However, you might ask, well, what comes in place of all this mess where work doesn't matter, everything is corrupt and everything? Well, here we come to the traditional values, or duchovные skrepi, the spiritual soil. What is the essence of this? What replaces trying to actually live a good life? Because
when did this become a thing?
That's Putin's era. He did Putin's social contract originally was basically, you do not go into politics, but I will give you at least sausage, because oil prices were high, and for people in the cities there was prosperity, and like the average salary really did improve.
Yeah, Moscow and St. Petersburg did develop quite nicely.
The Munich speech, by the way, I think 2006 is the moment where he starts talking about all this mess. That's when the laws start to happen.
2006, then 2008, Georgia.
Yeah, but that was No, that was Medvedev as president. Yes, Medvedev was.
Listen,
I find this funny when actually.
At least back then they at least tried to fake a democracy.
I will have to say this. I was watching Instagram, because everything gathers Instagram memes, right?
Yeah.
And there was one with Zhirinovsky, and god damn, I miss Zhirinovsky. He was insane in a way that I could at least appreciate. It was funny. Dmitry Medvedev is just so sad.
You mean the Liberal Democratic Party, which was neither liberal or democratic?
Or a party. But yes. Zhirinovsky,
he feels like a ghost of
By the
Christmas
way,
past
weirdly
now.
enough, Zhirinovsky's statements about Russia's future has been stated. I will now shut up so that we would cancel out this stuff, go to the bathroom and put it on the video. Because I have seen this one, which I want to show you, which is what happens in place. This is a long one, but it's a very valuable. I'm now turning this on and putting this on. This is duchovные skrepi test, like traditional values. This is how they call the spiritual stuff. Test of Russians on their IQ about the value system that has been put in place.
Don't make it full screen. Don't make it full screen.
Oh yeah, no full screen.
The subtitles don't work then.
I am checking this.
Yes.
Yeah, we have this stuff. Then we're gonna do this. Please make comments if you can.
I need to rest my voice. So we're just gonna
Если бы лицемерие было олимпийским видом спорта, духовные скрепы принесли бы России больше золота, чем все допинговые программы вместе взятые. Вдумайтесь, патриарх на яхте стоимостью с больницу учит паству скромности. Глава государства, бросивший жену ради гимнастки, защищает традиционные ценности. А руководители госкорпораций с нетрадиционной ориентацией продвигают законы против гей-пропаганды. Нефть кончится, газ иссякнет, но запасы российского лицемерия неисчерпаемы. На улицах никому не нужные Z-ветераны с оторванными конечностями. В телевизоре патриоты в костюмах от Бриони вещают о высшей духовности русского солдата. В церквях священники благословляют ракеты, которыми бомбят Украину. А патриарх с часами за 30 тысяч евро объясняет быдлу, что смерть на войне смывает грехи. Скрепами обычно называют то, что держит конструкцию. Но российские духовные скрепы – единственное в истории сооружение, держащееся исключительно на противоречиях. И вот что по-настоящему интересно, почему это работает в России.
Yeah, this is important because this will explain to you. I hope Mike is on. This will explain to you why the whole contradictionary thing, where basically they contradict themselves all the time, how this works and how this functions because of it, and why Russia as such cannot stop lying 100% of the time. It works on these controversies.
Why all of these things that we've talked about in the last 2 hours all kind of come together and, create the situation that we see in front of our eyes now.
The problem is I often get asked, well, how does Russia function as a country? And I answer, it doesn't. the fact is that you all are Putin's lying again. Putin and Russian officials, they simply cannot not lie, and the same goes for the whole apparatus, which is why their whole war and reporting is so bad, because that's a feature of the system, not a bug. And this is the background of it, the ideological basis.
The current nation of Russia is stood upon.
Почему так много людей продолжают верить в духовность системы, основанной на обмане, насилии и лицемерии? Что это? Массовый стокгольмский синдром или какой-то особый вид когнитивного диссонанса? Декабрь 2012 года стал точкой невозврата, когда Путин осознал, что экономического процветания недостаточно для вечной власти. Прошлая идеологическая конструкция под названием «суверенная демократия» исчерпала себя. Массовые протесты 2011-2012 годов показали ее несостоятельность. Первый урок из инструкции по оболваниванию.
Oh yeah, this happened, by the way, because in 2012 there was the Bolotnaya protests where actually he faked like a local election, I think, or Moscow municipal. I'm sorry again, my sources are out there. And then tons of people in Moscow came out and protest, and that's.
Oh, you mean during early 2010s?
Yeah, this is why he mentions 2012.
Yeah.
I would say the whole start happened much earlier when he destroyed the only political satire comedy show on TV and started to control media.
That's what happens. Like you have a first step, which is usually media control. Rather, first is political control. Second would be media control. And then, it all kind of slowly but surely, and because the Russian nation was so used to, I guess, not having democracy. And why do you need democracy when you have big?
You now have sausage.
You have no sausage, yes. And you don't have sausage. You have, but you have a duty, a patriotic duty.
No, that's now. They used to have sausage up until 2012. At least people in Moscow.
No, that's true.
Нечего предложить материально, предложи метафизику. Не можешь повысить уровень жизни, повышай уровень духовности. Духовные скрепы – первый элемент новой идеологической машины. За ним последовали другие – русский мир, традиционные ценности, гейропа, пятая колонна и так далее и тому подобное. Все эти элементы объединяет только одно – абсолютное лицемерие. В отличие от советской идеологии, хотя бы на словах стремившейся к материальному благополучию, скрепы открыто призывают терпеть лишения во имя абстрактной духовности. Начавшись как размытый термин о милосердии и сострадании, скрепы стремительно трансформировались в оправдание репрессий, цензуры и войны. Духовные скрепы немыслимы без фейковой религиозности, феномена идеальной симуляции. Второй урок оболванивания. Найди священный символ, уважаемый большинством, и сделай из него дубинку. Преврати любую критику власти в кощунство. Парадокс в цифрах. 80% россиян называют себя православными, но лишь 3% могут назвать хотя бы 2 заповеди. 64% считают себя верующими, но только 4% посещают службы. Не вера, а ее симулякр, пустая оболочка. Еще важнее принципиальная несовместимость действий духовной элиты, так называемой, с основами христианства. Церковь, благословляющая войну. Абсурд. РПЦ превратилась в департамент идеологии, где вместо духовных исканий – обслуживание госпропаганды. Детей водят в храмы не для постижения любви к ближнему, а для воспитания ненависти к врагам России. Заставляют носить Z-символику, но не объясняют ужасы войны. Этот религиозный суррогат работает через выхолащивание содержания веры при сохранении формы. Крест из символа жертвенной любви становится знаком имперской агрессии, а церковь из места духовного поиска – филиалом госаппарата. Третий урок оболванивания. Создай оруэлловский мир, где черное называют белым, а ложь – правдой. Парадоксально, но абсурдность скреп не ослабляет, а усиливает их эффект. Разум отказывается верить в такой масштаб лжи и ищет иные объяснения. Все начинается с захвата языка. Слова теряют смысл, превращаясь в метки лояльности. Духовность – не внутренний рост, а поддержка власти. Свобода – право соглашаться. Патриотизм – не только любовь к родине, но и главное – ненависть к назначенным врагам. Следом идет двоемыслие. Нужно верить в благосостояние страны, терпя нищету, восхвалять стабильность, живя в страхе, проклинать Запад, мечтая о западной жизни. Эта ментальная акробатика разрушает критическое мышление. Бездуховный Запад – шедевр пропаганды, существо вне логики. Одновременно и загнивает, и угрожает. Погряз в разврате, но дети элиты учатся там. Технологически отстал, но создает высокотехнологическое оружие. Все скрепляет экзистенциальный страх, не просто боязнь репрессий, а ужас перед крушением всей картины мира. Признать ложь скреп значит признать себя обманутым соучастником грандиозной лжи. Этот страх превращает жертв в защитников обмана. Человек, боящийся правды о себе, атакует ее источники. Так заключенные становятся сторожами собственной тюрьмы. Четвертый урок. Не можешь дать материальное благополучие? Дай иллюзию морального превосходства. Первая цель – замена общественного договора. Если в нулевые действовал простой обмен, лояльность за благосостояние, то после 2012 года предложили замену – духовность, абстрактная ценность, не поддающаяся измерению. Под прикрытием разговоров о высоких ценностях происходило беспрецедентное перераспределение ресурсов в пользу элит. Пока массам рассказывали о духовном величии, олигархи выводили миллиарды в те самые бездуховные страны. Вторая цель – легитимация нового авторитаризма. Не суверенная демократия, а откровенная автократия с элементами теократии, черпающая легитимность из исконных ценностей и особого пути. Ну, все это, конечно, в кавычках. На международной арене Россия рекламирует себя как последний оплот традиционных ценностей, привлекая консервативные силы от Ирана до Венгрии и даже до американских евангелистов. Третья цель – создание новой государственной идеологии. Скрепы стали фундаментом неофициальной, но обязательной доктрины традиционных ценностей. Четвертая, возможно, главная цель – подготовка общества к войне и репрессиям через создание образа осажденной крепости, что с успехом и произошло. Эволюция риторики показательна. От абстрактных рассуждений о моральном упадке Запада к призывам войны против сатанизма, от критики иностранных агентов к их физическому уничтожению, от защиты ценностей к оправданию массовых убийств. Духовные скрепы – не просто идеология, а технология лжи, трансформировавшая российское общество глубже любой экономической реформы. Она заставила людей не верить собственным глазам, видеть духовность в цинизме, защиту традиций в их уничтожении. Проследите эволюцию этой системы оболванивания от разговоров о дефиците духовных скреп к прямой военной пропаганде, от рассуждений о ценностях к репрессивным законам, от критики западного образа жизни к полномасштабной войне. Трагедия в том, что эта технология работает даже после лет войны и экономической рецессии, заставляя миллионы верить в особую духовность России вопреки очевидным фактам. Духовные скрепы – это не защита традиций, а их девальвация, не возрождение морали, а ее уничтожение, не укрепление государства, а его трансформация в инструмент обогащения элит. Потому что настоящие скрепы любого здорового общества не лицемерные декларации, а базовые принципы: правда, справедливость, сострадание, свобода. Все то, что было цинично подменено в конструкции духовных скреп. Но россиянам этого не понять никогда. Да и хуй с ними. Спасибо за внимание, друзья. Ставьте лайки, подписывайтесь на канал, нажимайте на колокольчик, что...
See, this is the whole situation about how you can turn this apathy and system of lies, everything, because, like you said, it shifts society completely. And the very fact is that when you
Can you even call that a society anymore? Does it even fit the criteria for a society, or at least a society that we would recognize and that we could look at? We could look at all the things and they're like, yes, that is a society. Because even a non-functioning society needs to have some kind of something. And if you remove all the core tenets of what it makes to be human, and it's all replaced with like paper similes of it, then
the trick is this is all of Soviet apathy plus 25 years
Yep.
of propaganda and everything, and all this playing on taking the worst parts of what happened in the Soviet era and twisting them around. It's a whole a different system.
I would say over the 20th century, the Russian people went from just being just happened to be being maybe not the best educated, not the wealthiest.
Well, the thing is,
into
it's a whole different myth. Let's not go on that one. Otherwise, we'll be here for 3 extra hours. That's a good topic.
Yes, no, but the point is what we're talking about here is like the Russian identity, and that was clearly as we've been talking for 2 hours. It's like we went from history and like how slowly but surely like you have the first thing, you have another thing, you have another, and it's like all builds up. Because I think it's important to understand that it took time for this to happen. This couldn't happen in 10 years.
Look, think about
like
this.
Putin is not responsible single-handedly for this.
Also, like
He definitely added to it.
Like think about it this way: who goes on protest? Young people, right? Well, that's what we see in Iran. By the way, Iran technically is more free than Russia by far.
Oh yeah,
Which is by the way. Young people go on protest and everything, but in Russia, young people go away, and the country is getting older. And Putin was happy about this fact. He didn't care as long as because they don't go on protest. But then it turns out if you start a war, you need those people. Yeah. And the problem is that why do only older people go and fight there? Well, because they literally have nothing else to do. Because economically speaking, the misery and nihilism and the fact that nothing will change and they won't do anything has reached the point where it makes perfect sense for a bunch of them.
But I think it's just
and then it gets worse because of all the prisoners.
Yeah, of course. But like I think it's to try to step into a Russian citizen's shoes, and understanding that like if his father didn't have it great, his great-father didn't have it great, his great-grandfather didn't have it great. And you go up, and there isn't even a golden age to look towards.
You know what's happening, especially in those far regions of Buryatia. There is this movement called AUE, which is basically I've spoken about Понятия on the show, but like they literally go to classrooms and openly tell everyone, well, look, you're definitely gonna end up in prison anyways. Might as well start participating in the system and donate to those who are sitting already. Like, what else are you gonna do?
And when you reach that point, that is the destruction of a. The destruction of a nation.
See, and this is why I think it's sort of you have to understand this part. First of all, about all the imprisonment. I hope I now have also tangentially explained why I truly use the knowledge of Russian prison culture as a slight criteria for being an expert, because it doesn't matter. It is central to the whole thing.
It's played a very significant role.
Yeah. Secondly, if what is Russia's strategic? Are there such a thing as Russia's strategic interests except Putin's rendezvous? This war and what's going on makes so little sense that strategic interests are literally just what Putin wants in his power. And those who are like, and now we get to the point where those who truly believe in this, like those who are just not the apathetic, but those who have chosen to embrace this, the Vatniks, what ends up happening is literally why I named this episode the way that I did, because if you would literally take any text written by like fanatical, zealous jihadists, terrorists, and just scrape out everything they say about Allah, replace it with Russia, Putin, and everything, and these texts are the same thing.
Yeah,
it is. This is why I'm saying that no matter what, even like if Russia collapses, we won't have a trouble, because these guys are forming militias, they're organized, and they will try to restore this, and there will be massive acts of terrorism over there. The problem is they want to build a great Russia, but the idea is that Russia is already a zombie. You can't, like, it's impossible. How do you
can't build a house out of burnt ash.
But this is the point. This is the point where it would have to. Everyone speak, like every time, even the Vikings speak about how everything is going in the war because they want to win this. When they say they have to change the system and it has to happen quick, yeah. If Russia actually is to advance and win anything, they would have to completely change all of the corrupt system, which is never going to happen, ever. And
they'd have to go full World War II war economy, and that wouldn't even win them the war. It would just prolong their death. That's what it would really do.
See, this is.
But then they would be a threat. I would say they would be at least a somewhat regional threat to Europe.
Also, when it comes to all this European stuff, remember the fact that lies are so widespread and constant that Putin, as he doesn't use the internet, he trusts his reports as he doesn't have any, and all of them contain lies in every amount. We like tons and tons of reports about reporting that this city is taken, but that isn't. All the equipment, army has everything, but it's all in the volunteers. And the volunteers, it's just it is crucial to this fact.
Regarding European militarization, I will say this. I think I've said this to you before, but the reason we need a European, also for obviously strategic autonomy reasons, but also because someone will need to police that boiling mess in some way, and considering America is turning isolationist again, as it does sometimes. Who else is going to do it if not us?
Yeah, and this, by the way, also explains the fact how many of these Vatniks are living in the West and still yelling at it. Because the current Russia is nihilistic hellhole. I think I'll skip the third one. I'm going to show the economy video because that's important too. Because this is like a bomb, so that we don't end this up on like 5 hours. But Russia in reality is an economic hellhole with no chances of development horribly, except for the very wealthy. But this whole idea, this mythos that they have built, that is lost and true and is abused constantly, means that in their own head, there exists a concept of this big Russia which is what they are fighting for. Meanwhile, everyone else is defending against real Russia because no one wants the real Russian thing. Yeah. But seeing as to those Vatniks, as their ideology is this idealist Russia state, which is good and kind, and it's the best thing ever on the planet Earth. So to them, we are evil because obviously their idea of great imperial Russia, the God's kingdom on earth, that is obviously good. If you don't want to be a part of that, then you must be evil. The very fact that they only have the real Russia which exists now, again, you just saw the whole contradictory part, right?
Yeah, and it's been. I mean, I would say whatever they end up doing is going to be the last hurrah. Last hurrah of a dying idea that's been, kept alive for probably longer than it should have existed for. Mm-hmm. The Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. The Russian Empire, well, it staggered on a century more.
Look, Putin will blow up some more cities, declare a victory, and then they're going to have a big party, and then this tiny little spark, and things are going to go boom. I honestly. Which is why I really don't understand the fact that Russia is killing civilians and doing terror. You know why they strike the civilian targets? They strike civilian targets because that's the only thing they can hit, because Ukrainians have anti-air defenses. They have this ideal. Maxim Kalashnikov speaks about crushing the central bureaus and everything, because he cannot even admit that Russia can't do it because of the Patriot missile defenses. Yeah. They don't try because they know they will mess this one up. But until they do, they have plausible deniability.
The only chance they had to legitimately, I guess, at least do a facsimile of a win was at the beginning. When that window closed, I mean, we're here now, almost 4 years later.
Yeah, but the thing is that currently this aggression, the same with Georgia and everything, it already shows that it's on its death throes, because if Russia has to do things like this to prolong its existence with its current system, which is basically a bunch of ex-KGB criminals LARPing Soviet Union, adding in some orthodoxy. Russian economy, well, you will see what Russian economists who are from patriotic channels like Tsargrad TV and people say about this economy. There is no benefit for Russia to this. Also, any trade with the United States, I'm sorry, but what will Russia trade to the United States? Oil?
I guess, but the U.S. doesn't need oil. The U.S. has become the largest oil exporter in the world.
Also understand the fact that in Russia, the Soviet era fields, which were easy to access, they've run dry already, and currently Russia's cost for extracting a barrel of oil is like what, like over close to $30.
Yeah.
And because of corruption, again, nothing has been invested, nothing has been done. And that's like, and we're saying this not because, this is not wishful thinking. I am constantly, this is why I constantly read Vatnik sources and look at what they say, which is why I'm showing you this.
Yeah, well, I will say this in comparison with what you're saying here, obviously, which is, I think is based in facts and logic and your sources and stuff.
I simply do not see any possible solution.
Yes.
Where they survive, because in the earlier days, back in the early 2000s, I thought Russia had two opportunities: world's largest North Korea, or collapse. But world's largest North Korea is failing massively, and they won't be able to pull it off because they don't even pay their own cops and everything. It's just out.
Yeah. I would say is that even all what you said, again, it makes sense. I think mainly because of historical trauma, we are still preparing for the worst case scenario, which I think is the correct thing to do.
Like I said, if you look at what Yuriyevich is saying and compare it to hardcore ISIS people, they will do crazy stuff with organized crime and everything, and we have to prepare for this mess.
Because we're literally on the border of what might be one of the largest civil wars in the 21st century.
Yeah, and I simply I don't Also, if Trump wants Russia as a strategic partner against China, the question is, but why though? And what's the point? Because I'm a bit confused. Resources,
I think,
or something.
Legitimately speaking, if I had to, and I will say this is not based in any deep analysis, but just a hunch, I guess. Which would be no Trump. The only reason Trump is even or the U.S. administration is appeasing Russia in some ways is because they just the current U.S. administration really does not like Europe.
By the way, I do have to say that when it comes to economy and what countries should do and how the world should work, Maxim Kalashnikov and Donald Trump they think about in the same way.
Yeah.
They accept one's doing that for the States, other one's doing that for Russia. It's literally the same. It's literally the same thing. Everything needs to be fixed because doesn't understand. But in the United States, I feel bad for the States because.
I feel bad for the people who are living in the States right now. Yeah,
because the situation with the AI stuff and the more I find out about how the common people get screwed over, there needs to be some sort of an actual reset. It's like, to me, also, the more I hear about all sorts of... For example, I watched there's a channel called More Perfect Union, and every time I hear the words private equity, I already scream. And secondly, I looked about the fact that they've made Maine lack water because of the what was this, Poland Spring, where they pump this.
Oh yeah, that's like a bottled water brand.
And then they hate Europe because we don't like the megacorp stuff, I guess.
They don't like Europe because it goes against their perceived worldview. Again, that is I will say this is purely my opinion. I'm not I'm not like.
Also, I have to remind people that my episode 2 of this season is the fact that they also hate Europe, but not in the way that it is, but in the way that they perceive it in the image of in their own heads too.
Yes.
And the same goes other way around, because when you look at like other people, a lot of people here misunderstand the States, and that's a problem we're trying to solve here. Really?
Yes. I mean, I think. I do think obviously Munich, 2025. The Munich Security Conference, the speech that Pitex had. I mean, it was. I mean, he said it. He blatantly said it. People didn't want to believe it, but as the year goes on, well, the year's about to close now. We're about to be 1 year out of this speech. Everything that the U.S. administration has done has only indicated that is their official policy.
I have to.
And the people who support the U.S. administration also are the people who are the biggest cheerleaders for, Orban, AfD, and every force that could technically destabilize and,
Sadly, I have to use a very famous quote here from a Holocaust survivor, and I sadly have forgotten the exact person, but. But it was if they are telling you that they want to kill you, believe them.
Yep.
It is just.
Which, I mean, again,
So
there is the positive effect, which I would say is that in Europe, at least, as a European citizen and as a Latvian citizen, there is a sense of hope.
By the way,
there is an actual sense of hope, and everything is not doom and gloom.
See, the idea is why this works in Russia, and why I believe the United States will struggle through, is because in Russia, like what Trump is doing now in the States is what Putin is doing. However, he's missing 20 years of total brainwash propaganda and apathy, and like people go and protest, people are active, they care, they go and vote.
Yes.
So
they did. The U.S. population does not have the 100+ years of misery, degradation, and core essential human values.
I mean, at this point, I simply at the beginning of all this mess, I really tried to be more neutral because I sort of have to. It's your internal politics. But now, when this concerns me, and I'm just reading the news of the pendulum and everything. I don't know how you can look at Trump's presidency in any way or form except that it benefits him.
Yeah, because because I mean the only positive you can take it from is that it has, because obviously as in Europe everything moves extremely slowly, and you need to bang 10 pots in front of the faces of our beautiful leaders before they're like right fuck. Because Europe was very comfortable being under the U.S. defense umbrella. It was fine. We were, militarily speaking, we were basically a vassal of the U.S. Empire. But you know what? It worked out for the both of us.
Also, another little thing.
But now it's ending, and
another difference between Russian states. You have state governments. They do laws. They exist over there. States can overrule things.
Yes.
In Russia, where like there is basically. They formally have elections in a few places, but not mostly. It physically is impossible for the states to turn into a dictatorship so quick. It doesn't happen so quickly.
Yeah, I mean this is, but to bring back into the, I'll just finish this point, and then, which is the reason. After the Munich Security Conference. I still remember it was Christos was still living in this apartment permanently, and I think we were maybe in an ironically tragic comedy way cheering for the end of the old diplomatic regime, the old diplomatic order, which had crumbled in front of our faces, and afterwards, like a few weeks later, when we launched the merch store. The first thing that I ordered, the first thing that I commissioned and organized to make as our first merch drop was the European shirts, because at least how I see it is this: if Europe doesn't do something, who the fuck else will?
Yeah, and here's a bit of a problem also since
pretty good shirts, by the way. Buy them.
Yeah. I like they really get sent. I hope that they're good. Really, at least the material.
They are well, the material. That's hard to say, but like
But
the
the-
artwork itself is they were drawn by our beautiful artists from Georgia and Turkey, two countries which are Georgia currently is literally in a state of turmoil, and Turkey isn't much better. But
By the way,
so we're supporting poor countries.
silent thought again. Remember, I told you that Plan 2025 is basically Brezhnev's era Soviet Union.
Yes,
It
you did.
legitimately is, because if you remember, Brezhnev stuffed us. Brezhnev loved receiving random awards. He invented a couple. Now Trump has a Peace Prize too. It is
The very legitimate FIFA Peace Prize.
I mean, seriously, it seems to be Brezhnev's era. All this mess. I mean, think about it. Now they have the internal
He
struggles
has a
about
lot of
access to-
similarities with Brezhnev.
Yeah,
He's very old.
And
He
the
really
whole-
likes shiny things.
and because of how state monopolies worked, trust me, megacorps, Google, and all these big corporations have about as much power as like the big companies
they
in
act the same.
Russia. You have the nomenclature who live in
Yes.
their own lives, all this stuff. It literally the similarities are really horrible. Like, yeah,
Horrifying.
you don't call it socialism, of course.
No. That's
But-
a big taboo, big taboo.
But for me, from what I see, watching all this stuff, it literally what reminds me the most is Brezhnev's era Soviet Union, and well, I suppose you can use this to learn how people actually felt like over there.
Yeah. But the main difference being
except in place of ICE. Imagine if ICE didn't deport people, but actively prevented you from ever leaving the country.
yes, of course. The only difference, obviously, being is that the U.S. democracy still is there, and they do have a. Well, there is a chance that this project, this initiative, does get stopped in its tracks, which I really hope it does, because I think the United States is an important part of global security, and even if they do, and I will say this. For all the people who say that Europe should do more, yes, we should do more. We should be self-sufficient in our defense needs and security needs, but it'd still be nice to have our old ally back.
And another thing, by the way, other similarity is the fact that Trump swings around and ignores expert opinions. But I think that's because he doesn't care.
Oh no, he doesn't. He doesn't have an idea. Doesn't have an ideology.
But in the end, Putin acts the same bizarro way, but because he just gets fed lies constantly all the time.
Yeah, and then they
it's
keep
a
playing
mess.
this dance, and again, the only positive thing it puts a massive fire under the European leader asses, and they have no choice but to act, which is good.
I mean, the objective situation is that it's not going to be pretty, but it's not going to be that horrible either. And it sounds stupid. Like, it sounds so weird when I'm talking to you about this. Yeah, I guess this isn't sensationalist enough because, like I said, random snippets. Whatever. Russia's propaganda works because of the fact that Russia lies all the time, but they function because Russia counts on the fact that you guys in the West will not accept the fact that Russia lies about everything all the time, constantly, so that you will believe at least something that they say.
Because obviously someone cannot lie 100% of the time, and yet they can.
And again, I very much respect William Spaniel, but I think his game theory would work if he would just treat Russia's government as basically a hostile takeover of a cartel of a country and treat it that way, closer to those elites.
There's a lot of people who still see it as it was. This is not the Russian Empire or Soviet Union, whatever you want to call it, in like the 1950s, the 1910s. Not the same country anymore.
Oh, by the way,
Been hollowed out.
another little thing on the 10th of December in Moscow, and you'll be stunned. Eggs now are now more expensive than they are in New York City. That too.
Yeah, that shouldn't be the case. The average citizen in even in Moscow, I don't think earns even close or near what people in New York City earn.
Oh, and by the way, Putin, he pretends that economy is a real thing, but he doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in economy or whatever all these speculations are about. Just like I say, the whole collapse, the system is so rotten that It already is not a constitution is not existent. Arbitrary prison sentences all over the place, and you can just get out of Dodge free card. Fuck this.
Yes, but would you agree with the statement, which is the last time the Russians had in their, maybe not in their current form, but in somewhat of a close, similar form as they are now, would you agree that the last chance they had was 1993? Basically, when they lost their Democratic, or do you think they would have ended up in the same hole anyway?
I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say that it's the last chance of Russia. It was the last chance of places like Tatarstan, Buryatia, and all those other republics to get out of Dodge, because again, it's a colonial empire.
Yes.
Another reminder is the fact that every resource gathering company is registered in Moscow. Every tax from everything is concentrated in the metropolis. People who get the oil, they don't see anything. There is no Buryatia big companies. Just doesn't happen.
No. And that's I mean, a century of erosion. More than a century of erosion, actually.
And again, every time some foreigner from the West who's like super far right wants to go to see these traditional values, they always inevitably either go back or die or something horrible happens all the time.
Or they live in Moscow in a little bubble because they are in some way important to the Kremlin.
Yeah.
That's also an option.
Moscow is going to be protected and like shielded from everything up until the very last second. Everyone else might starve and die, but they will hold on to Moscow.
So like Berlin in 1945?
Yeah. Possibly, but like...
Maybe not in the same way, of course, but...
The fact is that Moscow has like this symbolic value and everything. This is why, by the way, every time Ukrainians hit some sort of thing, officially by Kremlin's data, Ukrainians haven't struck any refinery with a drone. It's always we beat down all the drones, but some debris caused the fire. Because this is why I say the inability to admit that you did something wrong, and this whole fear system is so ingrained that it's getting to the point of absurdism, and everyone admits this.
Just like in the video, it is at least that aspect. Other aspects I wouldn't say, but at least the aspect of the almost social engineering of this extremely troubled and eroded people is in parallel with some like Orwellian thought of you making language and making speech and making thought for basically to go till the end. And that's also the thing, because Putin's a Soviet person, and again everything was state controlled, these big enterprises. Putin does not comprehend small business. He doesn't understand how you could build a following online. He's stuck into this mindset that it must be some sort of big megacorp stuff all the time. Which is why he's 100%. Which is why him, and the same goes for all the fanatical Magnets. For them, Navalny is an agent of because he definitely must receive all sorts of payment on his team. How else? They simply do not believe that they do not comprehend the modern era. Putin does not have a smartphone. No. Putin does not does not know how to use a computer. When he was filmed about electronic voting, he literally moved the mouse and clicked one button, and I'm pretty sure that he was told to move the mouse on that and click that, and that's his whole interaction. Yeah.
Putin in 2025 does not use smartphones and is happy about this, and that's the point of pride. He does not use the internet. He reads internet in 17 red binders printed out on him, given to him by his reports.
I think it's, to be fair, up there. I think how old is Putin?
70, over 70.
Over 70. Well, let me see. Because I need more of a precise age for this man. Because I'm gonna do. How old is this guy? 73. Okay, he's around 4 years younger than the person I was about to mention, which is I know the thing is, I know his generation. Obviously, his life path was way different, and his moral ethical values and all that stuff. But if you're talking about the digital and understanding how business works, understanding how the modern world works, etc., like that. I mean, yeah, I have a grandfather who's 77, slightly older, but same generation. Yeah, he also doesn't have a smartphone. He also doesn't have, but he is not a leader of a nation. He is a,
And literally everyone who's been around Putin right now has been picked only because of loyalty. Everyone who could say something, and they all have massive incentives to constantly lie, because of all this system. Every officer in the Russian army, only Vatniks care about victory. Those officers who sit there, they care about getting a medal, stealing as much money to live comfortably when the war ends, and they just send people to die because who gives a fuck about the people.
But I think it's important to understand that the generation that's currently in charge of Russia, which is a completely different generation than what is in charge, for example, of Latvia, which are basically the pure Soviet people, but who experienced the collapse of the Soviet Union in their 30s, 40s. They never learn. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them never learned how to adapt to the modern world, because the world has changed so much, especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union. All the Western technology and all that came in as well in a flurry, and in the last 25 years we've completely changed as on how society functions in using electronics and digital services.
By the way, another little thing which is a side effect of this, what Western analysts don't mention when they speak about possible Putin's invasion of Europe, is the fact that every country that borders Russia was a part of the USSR or the power bloc. When in the West they make calculations about the tolerance, how much society will tolerate casualties. Yeah, over here you have no idea. Look at Ukraine. It might seem horrible, but just
remember. I think a very key fact to remember about this is 1939, 1940. We gave, our dictator at the time, rather, we didn't do it because at that point 6 years ago he did a coup and we didn't have a democracy anymore. He basically he gave Latvia to the Soviets without a fight.
Yeah,
and that's a thing that the Latvian nation has not forgotten since.
And that ended up costing us insane amounts of our population.
Yep.
So
we are historically inclined not to, because afterwards that was seen as the ultimate betrayal, the ultimate basically just I don't know how to say this, but just the biggest mistake that we ever made, and it was made by Ulmans. It was because we were a dictatorship.
Yeah,
Finland, which was a democracy, decided not to do that.
The biggest issue here is that if you look at the Baltics again, and in Poland, they look at the territorial guard and they presume there will be some sort of abstract civilians who will somehow try to survive with apathy here. The problem is we've been through this stuff before and we know the consequences and we know what's going on in Russia. The whole, of course, there will be, if, in case of whatever, there will be some collaborators, there will be those who run away, but the vast majority of people.
Because an important fact about this, Latvia is a very small nation. We don't have that many people. Our country is very small. We know that if there's another Russian occupation, we can say the Latvian nation goodbye. We cannot survive another World War II level massacre, deportations, etc., etc. Even if it was of the same, even if it was half of that level, it would destroy this nation.
And it will say you something that, at least as far as I know from our generation, when the German guy wrote this book, Why He Won't Defend His Country and Will Run Away, I think that's pretty much something that is just viewed as no here.
I think I wouldn't say it so clearly.
Well,
I would say that there's a lot of people in this country. There's a lot of people who in this country who are who their natural inclination would never be to the action would never be to go into war, and they would never go into the military, whatever. But if at the end of the day you put them into the basically as we say in Latvian, nulets fakta priekšā, or put in front of the fact of the situation. If they had to choose, okay, you choose you become a because a lot of people they in Latvia they have this almost magical thought of that they're going to run away, but there's not that in that case it's very unlikely to even leave the Baltics because we're basically a island. But if they were if they had two choices, I don't know, do nothing and let the Russians come, or put your life on the line to make sure that doesn't happen. They choose the latter.
See, Bucha happened despite the fact that Russian propaganda was telling all the while that Ukrainians and Russians are the same people. They're saving them from neo-Nazis, and that didn't stop them from killing a bunch of civilians. We're the country where they claim as their open enemy. They know we are the most evil people ever, and the civilian massacre would be immense, insane.
Yep. Because I mean, at that point, there's no. If you're anyone in anything, because again, we have the historical. It's already happened before. We had our intelligentsia destroyed. Half of them fled. Some of them shot. Some of them deported. It completely ruined the whole generation of smart, intelligent people. They stole a minority from us as well, with the Baltic Germans, which were wealthy, intelligent. Again, a part of. They were an integral part of Latvian society.
Oh yeah, same thing by the way exists not only in Latvia but also Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, like Finland. All like the whole situation is that I think in a lot of cases it's presumed that the civilians will just will get scared of the losses and just the surrendery thing. We did that once. I can guarantee you that no.
Yeah.
So
I will say though. I will say this that I mean I have to mention it, which is that there is one city in Latvia which I wouldn't put my security bets on.
Yeah, but then they have to go through Belarus, which is another kind of war.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, it doesn't matter because the one of the most important parts of our military, which is the Latgale National Guard Battalion.
Oh,
their literal existence is they have one goal.
Okay, dude. Okay,
Yes.
please switch that one. Otherwise, I really want to talk about things, but I legitimately can't.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry.
you're talking about my district.
Yeah. No, it's okay. We will.
But just the whole idea is that I don't think that everyone's planning on the fact that 44 I can tell you that 45 days is a NATO plan. We will definitely hold for at least 45 days, 100% in case of whatever.
I think at the end of the day, I think one of the core, which I remember this happened a few years ago. This was I think this was the first or second year of the war. We have a festival here in Latvia which is called Lampa, or the lamp, which is basically like I think the official title it's a democracy festival, but it's basically like imagine in an old medieval castle park, you have like 30 to 40 stages, little tents, bigger stages, like also like a proper big stage, and there are basically talks like TED Talks, or maybe not TED Talks, but like panel discussions happening all the time around regarding every single subject you could ever think of. It is quite fun. You can learn some things from there. There were the German Air Force pilots that year at the German embassy tent, and I just out of curiosity, because the one thing that always bugged me was like Air Force, because we don't have one, and the NATO policing mission, it's a few planes. So I just out of curiosity, I'm like, how long does it take you to get your jet aircraft from Tallinn to Vilnius? Because at that time the Germans were stationed. They were stationed in Lielvard as well, because the other two bases were they had like repairs going on. And he said what did he say, like 10 minutes? And obviously the Germans, they fly Eurofighters. And at that point I'm like, okay, then they don't have to worry about Air Force at all, because we have Sweden, we have Finland. The Swedish Air Force can be over the Latvian skies in a matter of 25 minutes.
And you'll be surprised, but we actually, at this point, you might have noticed in the news that we keep building drones for Ukraine.
Yes.
We have
this is totally not for our local
we have insane amount of people who build those drones too. Just, I find it weird that normally in the armies you normally find people who are mostly on the right wing of the political spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Over here, the more liberal you are, the more inclined you are to actually go and join the army and learn the survival stuff.
Yes, that is true. Well, because I think that this is an important thing that a lot of people forget, which is that in case of that most horrible of scenarios where something does happen of that in that kind, the thing we're fighting for is, all the core values of the European Union, which is democracy, liberty, our ability to choose our own life and not be oppressed by some fucking some big fat men in Moscow. I kind of don't like that.
Also, I still remember all the stories that my grandparents told me about how they survived World War II. It's like we have all this in living memory, and now we see the stuff in Ukraine and all this mess is that. Yeah, the whole panic about Europe's security situation is that we might not have the funds, but when it comes to motivation, all this stuff, there is no
Latin military funding.
There is quite possibly no way how Russia is gonna and Russia knows all this stuff. They also saw the Ukrainian thing. What I don't understand is that instead of it's gonna be hybrid warfare for Russia's part, they're gonna do probing, they're gonna launch drones and everything.
Yeah, no, but I will say this. If for some people who'll be like, but they're just scaremongering, whatever. I'm like, Latvia, at least Latvia, I will not speak of the other Baltic nations, is putting the money where its mouth is.
Oh, Estonia
from next year, I think our defense budget is, and we are a small nation. It's going up to 4.93% of GDP, which is we've almost hit 5%, but I think if you add on top of that the Ukraine aid, which is scheduled every single year, 0.25% of our GDP, then I think we reach 5% already.
And also this
we did this year.
And by the way, this whole war has proven that big tank actually isn't as capable in modern situations as it might become super good again, but it's not the juggernaut it used to be. It's still useful.
No. Yeah. That's the only thing I wanted to mention is don't go into the other it still has a use.
Absolutely not.
Still has a use.
But the problem is that throwing big money on all this stuff. Currently, the whole Russian invasion and all this doom for the EU stuff. I think that I think what we're getting here is because Russia knows this mess is going to be hybrid warfare, and we know we're going to have all this trouble. And when Ukraine's army stays put, they're going to be training our soldiers and everything. And I wouldn't want Trump might actually get a very militarized Europe, which is sitting there.
That is what he's getting actively, which is that turning Germany, which was always the biggest U.S. ally, always going to be America number one since the World War II, and their chancellor is saying we should probably do things ourselves.
I'm mentioning this all because my biggest fear is the fact that once we actually militarize and get our shit together,
yes.
Russia goes collapsing, but then they have this new thing in Russia, some sort of secondary Kalashnikov style dude who then goes to Trump and says, "Look, let us combine our forces against Europe. They're scary now."
Oh yeah, for sure. No. I've said this before, which is I think the biggest fear I have is not the current Putin regime. It's fucking not much that to fear there. But it is exactly if at some point the reactionaries or the truvatniks, so to speak, the ones that actually understand if they see a fork on the ground, they're like, that is a fork. Which that's not a high bar, but
look, they will be involved in the war against Chechens and all that mess too.
True, but if they took the levers of power, then I'd be scared. Then I would legitimately be scared. Because they unlike the current regime, they actually, they believe in the cause, so to speak, which the current obviously government doesn't. They just kind of doing things for doing sake.
Yeah, in all of the situation, I really am afraid of all this because I for one want to have a peaceful. I want to raise my future kids in peace, but all this looks quite nasty. But we in Ludza also, we just have all these bunkers and civil defense buildings. They're just a part of life.
Oh yeah, and getting prepared, getting ready, all that stuff. That has become, again, we're not repeating the mistake of 1940. We're actually consequently, even for example after 2014, the Latvian military was a piece of junk. Like it was literally absolute. Like a medium-sized U.S. city's police force was better and would probably beat the Latvian army in 2013.
Yeah, but this is important because
And then the 2014 exact turning point. And we've been going on an upwards, modernizing our military, properly funding it now. Like, I remember what our military parades used to look like.
oh yeah, just the whole idea is that I'm seeing all this happening here, and I just get really annoyed when Western media says, "Oh no, all doom gloom, Ukraine losing instantly." I'm sorry, but Pokrovsk at this moment is a pile of rubble. They don't conquer cities; they destroy them. It's just horrible what they do to civilians. But it doesn't really, like, with the price that they're paying. To be fair, at this point, even if they would mysteriously get competent and conquer all of Ukraine, that wouldn't stop the country from collapsing.
No.
At this point, it wouldn't even prolong it, to be honest, that much. Again, I keep stating.
I think a complete victory in Ukraine. That is legitimately, from all the things we've talked about today, that is legitimately impossible.
Crimea already is a pile is a massive drain on resources. The openly state, like, there is nothing there.
Again, the worst case scenario for example, countries like ours is is a couple things happening in sequence, which, I mean, while not likely, could happen, of course. And you should always prepare. You should always prepare for it's like the doctrine of, like, assume your enemy is actually competent. We know he is. We know they aren't, but we'd rather have the necessary resources to fight a competent enemy rather than one that is incompetent.
You see, that is one other little thing that I don't like. Amnesty International and all these people who are very much pacifistic, and everyone who said that, oh no, Ottawa landmine, which, like, look, all these organizations who are stating to us that we shouldn't, we should keep in the convention and play by the rules. It's very simple here. We're Soviet men. We know Russia won't play by the rules. They do war crimes daily, and and they will throw this. It doesn't. The thing is, we're not gonna export landmines anywhere else. Everyone knows where they're going. No. And when this organization decides to yell at us for lack of progress in this area, well, we were forced to, and we do not have the luxury of not having those landmines over there. For one,
we just want, literally, the only thing the Latvian people have ever wanted in our history is.
Claire says I look horrible. Yeah,
we just want peace. We just want to have our little our little cities, our little farmsteads, and just fucking.
And there's a difference, because again, I've seen a lot of reports on desertions in the Ukrainian army and the fact that they have to do mobilization in the Russian army. And there's a fundamental difference, by the way, as told by the leader of this Russian People's Militia, Lantavar, where he stated that in Ukraine, if someone wants to avoid serving in the force, that's because he personally doesn't want to go. He's afraid, but he has not, like, he knows the country needs to be defended. He just doesn't want doing it. If he's forced to, he will wanker, but then he will go and do it, and might maybe run away or something. But they're now fixing their own issues and like that. In Russia, desertions happen because there is, like, everyone who is they see all the mess and nonsense, and they basically know that active army and everything, that all this is meaningless, and they don't see the meaning of the whole war, and they get sent off in all this mess. So magical. But not right now, when we have sidetracked to talk about the fact that no, we're not as useless as people think. Let us skip to Russian economy. Why I'm 100% convinced that the August 2026.
I think that's where we're also going to end.
Yeah. We're going to end with that one. We're going to watch that video and then maybe do some comments on it, and then we're done.
Our dear friend is waking up in an hour.
Oh, cool.
We should probably end by that point.
Yeah, this is a big couch.
We have a deadline, so to speak.
Okay. This is my friend Michael Naki, who is a citizen of the United States.
Экономика России в ноябре – это не ожидание и даже не фиксация.
I really don't. This because he has just gathered the video materials for about basically Russian economy from Russian economists and people who run factories. It's going to be great.
Yep.
Приближение кризиса. Это был месяц констатации. Вот он, пошел. Банкротство, кризис неплатежей, повышение цен, повышение налогов, смерть целых отраслей. Все начинает валиться, и скрывать это почти не получается, признаются сами зетники. Люди видят это на полках магазинов даже с заблокированным WhatsApp. При этом приближающийся 26-й рисуется абсолютно всеми как катастрофический. Никто не видит выхода из сложившейся ситуации, лишь фиксируя, что дальше будет сильно хуже, причем абсолютно во всем. Что писали и говорили зетники в ноябре, рассказываю в этом видео. Россия ничего не производит и находится в полной зависимости от Китая, утверждает на радио «Комсомольская правда» эксперт Юрий Крупнов.
Понимаете, мы сегодня, по всем параметрам видим, что мы практически разучились создавать собственные изделия. Я не буду сейчас...
Yeah, Yuri Krupnov is a very, very well-known economist. He's supported by the state. He's well in Kremlin's pool. This is Radio Komsomolskaya Pravda by the Russian Federation Communist Party, which is the sanctioned opposition. Big one, because again, all this stuff. These are as deep in Vatnik channels as possible.
Авиапром даже, хотя в судостроении еще хуже, там, как говорят, условно, так сказать, серьезные люди, специалисты, а не блогеры всякие, там, по утрам что-то такое там трендящее. Вот, то есть в этом смысле промышленностью она сегодня требует определения...
Экономика России в ноябре – это не ожидание и даже не фиксация приближения кризиса. Это был месяц констатации. Вот он. Банкротство, кризис неплатежей, повышение цен, повышение налогов, смерть целых отраслей. Все начинает валиться, и скрывать это почти не получается, признаются сами зетники. Люди видят это на полках магазинов даже с заблокированным WhatsApp. При этом приближающийся 26-й рисуется абсолютно всеми как катастрофический. Никто не видит выхода из сложившейся ситуации, лишь фиксируя, что дальше будет сильно хуже, причем абсолютно во всем. Что писали и говорили зетники в ноябре, рассказываю в этом видео. Россия ничего не производит и находится в полной зависимости от Китая, утверждает на радио «Комсомольская правда» эксперт Юрий Крупнов.
Понимаете, мы сегодня, по всем параметрам видим, что мы практически разучились создавать собственные изделия. Я не буду сейчас про авиапром даже, хотя в судостроении еще хуже, там, как говорят, условно, так сказать, серьезные люди, специалисты, а не блогеры всякие, там, по утрам что-то такое там трендящее. Вот, то есть в этом смысле ситуация с промышленностью, она сегодня требует определения вопроса, а что мы должны, какие новые индустрии будущего мы должны выдвинуть миру и произвести. И это, кстати, прежде всего связано с вопросом Китая. Потому что если убрать всякие ругательские вещи, но Китай — наша главная проблема. Не потому, что Китай завтра там нападет и откусит Сибирь, а прежде всего потому, что...
One thing that people have missed, but actually Russia has done exercises on the Chinese border defending from them way more than on even Belarus, mind you.
Китай настолько развил свои производительные силы, что он, по большому счету, за 2 года может просто вымести всю промышленность из России, поставив свои товары, локализовав свои изделия и так далее. Поэтому вопрос промышленной нашей самодостаточности и суверенитета — это вопрос номер 1. И вся добавленная стоимость и вся деньга в семью, в развитие, в детей, она вся идет из того, что ты можешь произвести и продать. Если убрать вопросы грабежа там, политического и так далее. Поэтому вопрос индустрии будущего. Вот ключевой вопрос. И вопрос, предмет, которым вся планета будет заниматься в ближайшие лет 30, опять же, 40 и прочее.
Экономист Олег Сухарев на той же радиостанции рассказывает, что ситуация в экономике очень и очень плохая.
Ситуация в экономике нехорошая. Ее скрывают почему-то. По непонятным причинам. Мы видим, чтобы не расшевеливать население, не приводило это к апатии, какие-то психологические, политико-психологические мотивы присутствуют. Потому что, реально экономика затормаживается весь 25-й год, причем серьезно. С лета началось серьезно, отдельные отрасли испытывают большие трудности, уже не отдельные какие-то торможения, а, например, металлургия, сельхозмашиностроение, отдельные отрасли общего машиностроения. Мы имеем даже минус с сентября 25 к сентябрю 24. Причем минус ощутимый, минус 10, минус 15. По отдельным, я сейчас не помню просто какая это отрасль, но по отдельной минус 20 даже. Вы понимаете? Поэтому я просматривал эти сводки, причем это официальные, сентябрь к сентябрю. То есть сентябрь 25 к сентябрю 24. Поэтому причина понятна. Это монетарная политика. Во-первых, она не согласована с бюджетной, это понятно, но во-вторых, она рестриктивная. То есть она неолиберальная, которая связана с порочной логикой, приводящей к торможению роста.
Причина, на самом деле, в войне, но если такое сказать, то отвалится жопа. Или, кажется, в СИЗО Лефортово или каких-нибудь других изоляторах окажется. Это, пожалуй, единственное, с чем у России проблем нет и не предвидится, так как в тюрьмах куча мест, освободившихся благодаря отправлению.
I'll just do the corner thing. Here we go. I'll put myself here so that I don't bother the subtitles. There, that's gonna be
Нам на убой зэкам. Куда же без нашего любимого Владимира Баглаева, генеральный директор Череповецкого литейно-механического завода, как-никак, который...
Yeah, this is a person who is in the military-industrial complex. Cherepovets Foundry and Mechanical Plant is a tank factory. It produces tractors and tanks. It's heavy industry. The one which should be running in full swing.
Yes.
They work in 3 shifts and everything. The ones who are apparently, but this guy.
Уже скоро посадят, по моим ощущениям, за крамол.
Он приводит убийственные данные. Но сейчас это сменилось обвалом спроса в этом году. За 9 месяцев потребление стали в машиностроении во всем, а туда всякое машиностроение входит, упало на 25%. Ребята, в этом году машиностроение стало потреблять стали на 25% меньше, чем в прошлом. И нормальная
So, if their whole heavy industry, which is machine building industry, has now decreased the amount of steel they use by 25%, okay, yeah, 25% in economy is an insane amount of a huge number.
Настроение и двойного назначения. В сумме упало на 25%. И вот я возвращаюсь опять к докладу Набиуллиной, к ее презентации, где четко показано в этом докладе, она ссылается на достижения финансового Минсбука, именно на рост машиностроения в России. Он рекордный. По ее докладу. За 9 месяцев, по ее данным, машиностроение в России год к году выросло на 11,4%. И тут у меня не складывается. Машиностроение выросло на 11% с лишним, почти 11,5%. И при этом она стала потреблять на 25% металла меньше. Это сказать, что мы перешли на композитные материалы машиностроения, там на КамАЗе, на ВАЗе. Хоть кто-нибудь объясните вот этим ребятам с Минфина, где-то еще, что по таким приборам, достоверным приборам, идти на мягкую посадку нельзя. Разобьемся нафиг.
Это он про доклад Набиуллиной, которым ничто ни с чем не бьется вообще. Кстати, Баглаева рекомендую всем смотреть напрямую. Он, конечно, зетник, но в каждом эфире подробно рассказывает, какой пиздец происходит во всех отраслях. Надо смотреть, пока он на воле. Официальная инфляция занижена в 2-3 раза, считает экономист и на секундочку депутат Госдумы Михаил Делягин.
Официально, по-моему...
Я не официально. Я
в реальности.
Delagin used to be a colleague of Mr. Lipsitz, but then he got infected with true believers of Yuriyevich situation, and now just sprouts nonsense and normally blames conspiracy theories and West for everything.
Официально умножаем на 3, все в порядке.
На 3.
То есть процентов 20.
They say sodium, they say natri is like they multiply by 3.
У нас же в этом году тарифы на коммуналочку подняли. Куда ни глянь, все подскочило в цене. Я тут лекарство покупал, простенькое, в аптеке. И мне, значит, продавщица говорит, да, столько-то. Там говорит, подождите, что за нафиг? Слушайте, у меня за сегодня в 1,5 раза цены на это лекарство выросли. Я вчера продавала по старой цене, а сейчас в 1,5 раза больше. Я говорю, класс. Хорошо живете? А можно к вам в Думу?
Кстати, видео с ним называется «Подорожает вообще все». Тоже могу рекомендовать к просмотру. Я вообще рекомендую вам не верить ни на слово. Мало ли я там слова из контекста вырезал и все такое. Проверяйте, смотрите оригиналы. Также Делягин подтверждает в другом видео, что начинаются процессы, которые привели к финансовым крахам 90-х, а именно кризис неплатежей. На это, собственно, его наводит ведущий.
Перед нашей встречей я всегда открываю ваш телеграм-канал «Делягин Спешл». Вижу очень нехороший пост для меня. Значительная часть российских компаний уже сталкивается с кризисом неплатежей. Дело в том, что я свою трудовую карьеру начинал в 90-х годах.
Руки помнят? Затвор-то руки помнят, как
И я
движется,
помню, как этот кризис неплатежей влиял и на зарплаты, в том числе. У меня 3 месяца зарплату не платили. Это было вообще нормально, потому что до полугода доходило. Компании банкротились, закрывались. Была ужасная депрессивная обстановка. Неужто сейчас у нас то же самое начинается?
Начинается, да. Начинается, потому что когда экономику страны выманивают искусственно созданным денежным голодом, да, это возврат в 90-е годы. И я все чаще сталкиваюсь с взрослыми и пожилыми людьми, которые говорят, в 90-е было лучше, чем сейчас.
He works for Tsargrad TV, the official, who's owned by a hyper-orthodox oligarch too, by the way.
Не потому, что мы были моложе, девушки были красивше.
Ну, деревья выше, сахар слаще.
Вот, и водка приятнее. И можно было ее пить, черт возьми. Нет, просто тогда была перспектива. Она была плохой, она была ужасной, она была неприятной, были страшные риски, но была надежда в 90-е годы. Кто-то верил в демократию, кто-то верил в коммунизм, кто-то верил в грабеж. Но у всех была какая-то перспектива. Нужно было что-то пытаться. А сейчас никто... Будущее ликвидировано.
Честно говоря, красивая фраза. Будущее ликвидировано. И, пожалуй, лучшее описание политики Владимира Путина последние 25 лет. И заметьте, сказал ее Делягин, депутат абсолютно лояльной карманной Государственной Думы. Ну и давайте...
Deputy, turns out.
Лайву снова вернемся, потому что он рассказывает самое интересное. Не абстрактные экономические размышления, а конкретика на примере своего собственного завода.
Знаешь, вообще, честно говоря, за кадром при выключенных микрофонах, я, извините, я перебил, просто хотел экстремизм сказать, все больше и больше разговоров идет о том, что две реальности. Одна реальность — это то, что на Земле происходит, и другая — то, что в отчет. Между ними говорят, что очень большой. Подтвердить и опровергнуть мы это не можем. Вот я там смотрел.
Я тебе привел пример по сельхозтехнике и сельхозпроизводству. Ну как так может быть? Ну так не может быть.
Перевозки падают, значит, платежи падают. Платежи падают.
Сказала, что
не бьются вообще.
Эльвира Сайданова сказала, что упали ЖД перевозки, автомобильные выросли. Не знаю. По моей информации, то, что я вижу по перевозкам реально автомобильными, у нас жуткие простои у автомобильщиков. Может, где-то на юге они много возят, я не знаю. Но вот здесь у нас есть беда. Я практически за последний год распродал половину своего транспорта, которым занимался перевозками и логистикой своей.
Теперь давайте к Демушкину, который в последнее время позиционирует себя как именно экономический эксперт или обозреватель. Вы в комментариях сильно ругаетесь, когда я называю его зетником или зет-экономистом, поэтому давайте назовем аккуратно экономистом, находящимся в России. В любом случае, менее мрачным от этого его прогнозы и характеристики не становятся совершенно. Ситуацию в промышленности детально он описывает в одном из видео и рассказывает, что кризис уже есть.
2/3 предприятий угольной отрасли, они убыточные. У них уже кризис наступил. У металлургов кризис наступил. Триллион убыточности «Газпрома» кризис наступил. С нефти кризис наступил. У человека, который пришел и увидел, что продукты подорожали в половину, раньше он экономил на одежде, теперь он экономит на еде, не может заплатить за лекарства и коммуналку. Кризис уже тоже наступил, просто этот кризис каждый видит по-своему, по-разному. Но есть вот огромное количество по отраслям, по направлениям все, нет ни одной отрасли, наверное, сегодня уже даже ВПК мы видим признаки кризиса. Хотя за счет этого ВПК, собственно, и держится экономическая сносная статистика, хотя она обманчива от начала до конца, но даже за счет ее уже этот ВВП не получается выправлять. Он все равно выходит в ноль. То есть это стагнация экономическая, на самом деле кризис. Если мы посмотрим по отраслям производственным, где именно товары и услуги для населения производства, там уже давно жесткий минус идет и жесткий спад. И держатся за счет оборонки. Но оборонку можно наращивать только до какого-то этапа. Вы можете ввести на заводе военном 2 смены, вы можете залить туда денег, ввести 3 смены, но наступает момент, когда вы дальше не можете наращивать эту оборонку, потому что надо не уже 4-ю смену вводить некуда, надо уже капитальные вложения, строить новые заводы, а это много времени и много триллионов денег. Поэтому наступает момент, когда вы исчерпали вот этот запас роста быстрого, и все, сегодня мы уже видим откат, он уже не держит.
Дефицит федерального бюджета, даже тот, что ужасный и огромный, не отражает всей ситуации полностью, уверен Демушкин, и подробно объясняет, почему.
Все видят и считают дефицит бюджета, но, ребят, надо дефицит бюджета считать в комплексе. Хорошо, когда вот вы посчитали правительству, сколько в данный момент не хватает по их социальным обязательствам и расходам. Вы же не посчитали при этом долги отраслей, вы не посчитали долги предприятий ВПК, вы не посчитали банковскую дыру, которая сегодня государство государственными облигациями заполнило, забрав ликвидность всю денежную банков. Вы не посчитали долги региональных бюджетов, которые сегодня фактически даже по своим обязательствам не могут выплачивать, потому как они просто в долговой яме находятся. Следующие у них бюджетами остаются под 20 и 30%, где выплаты процентов по тем кредитам, которые они уже взяли. А вы почему-то посчитали только нам дефицит федерального бюджета. Извините, а все остальные.
Людей будут доить все больше налогами, штрафами и так далее. Других вариантов попросту нет, по мнению Демушкина.
Понятно, что население это сейчас главный источник. Штрафы, налоги, фискальные способы, то есть будут всячески пытаться вытащить деньги, чтобы вы больше платили, чтобы вы заплатили за все, что они накосячили за все эти годы. Раньше они вам обещали светлое будущее, а сейчас они вам обещают, что светлое будущее у вас, оказывается, было позади, а сейчас надо затянуть пояса. Вот еще вчера они наговорили наоборот, будем жить хорошо, как в Европе. У нас был доход, а сейчас они говорят, нет, мы уже жили хорошо, а сейчас надо уже пожить плохо. Но проблема в том, что кто-то может начинать жить чуть хуже, а кто-то уже живет настолько плохо, что затягивать ему нечего, он уже не может свои основные потребности закрывать и вынужден экономить на самом необходимом. И вот здесь они будут придумывать карточки, не знаю, какие-то там программы, как сделать так, чтобы голода просто не было, да, в определенных слоях населения. Но хороших у них ходов экономических я не вижу.
Но он полагает, что на самом деле власти понимают, что кризис уже идет и неизбежно его наращивание, поэтому каждый пытается подстраховать лично себя, в том числе Набиуллина, поэтому она говорит и делает всякие глупости.
Я не верю, что Набиуллина и весь финансовый блок, они думают в целом о всей экономике. Я думаю, что они думают о том, чтобы провалиться самим данной концепции. Я сейчас поясню, что я имею в виду. Я уверен, что Набиуллина, давайте так, это мое оценочное суждение, уверена, что кризис будет большой и неизбежный. Так же, как Силуянов и Решетников уверены в этом также. Вот это мое оценочное суждение. И если вы уверены, что все равно не избежать обвала и краха, вы будете делать так, чтобы этот обвал и крах не повесили на вас лично, то есть на вашу зону ответственности.
You see, he said, you will do everything to make sure when those crashes happening, but they're not going to do anything to prevent it because, again, the culture of never admitting you're wrong, everyone's main task is to prevent it being pinned on him, find the fall guy. It has always been the case also in the Soviet era and that Homo Sovieticus mindset.
Yes, because you cannot,
инфляция, она, собственно, ей занимается, это прописано в законе. Она как ЦБ, регулятор финансовый, занимается именно этим. Она сейчас морозит вклады населения, она сейчас делает массовые блокировки карт везде. Хотя это ведет, опять же, к проблемам люди просто наличные уходят, потому что, понимаешь, когда ты ездишь и не можешь заправиться там на бензоколонке, потому что нету интернета, да, когда ты тебе блокируют карту за перевод в 1000 рублей своей жене, ну, нахера тебе все эти проблемы? Ты идешь, либо пишешь заявление, что прошу выдавать мне зарплату наличными, либо...
One thing though that happened that's not in this one, but it's tied to this, is that yesterday they announced that they will stop paying financial aid to people from Kursk region who got their houses blown up because they can manage it fine.
I'm sure they can find food on the
банкомате первом же, что, естественно, банкам очень не нравится. И она держит свой сектор. Опять же, у министра финансов, у него сектор наполнения бюджета. Вот он должен сделать все, чтобы деньги наполнялись. Сейчас каждый политик, который вылазит с каким-то заявлением, вылазит исключительно в разрезе, а где бы нам еще обуть население? А вот почему у нас ОБС там получают какие-то людишки, которые не работают, давайте мы у них заберем.
В ноябре уже натурально пошло обнищание граждан, пишет МЭФ «Экономика для людей». Россияне начинают экономить на продуктах питания. Рост покупательской активности на продуктовом рынке сменился...
Okay, Robert, can you please look at this and then check the dollar things. Let's go through this one. This is important.
Okay, I have it open.
Because we have this. I want to express this in euro dollars.
Okay.
So let's see.
So what's the first position?
Structure of how much they spend in January, September of this. On what sectors people spend their stuff. 4.9% on paid services. The 34.6% on foodstuffs. 37% on not foodstuffs. And 23% on like basically going to cafes. Basically, 37% like all of this.
That is a very weird.
23.5% is spent on the going eating somewhere else. Like when you not eat at home, and the bottom six is when you eat at home. Two-thirds of this is food.
It's just food. Yeah.
Yeah, and
because they don't have enough. They don't.
Increase of prices for basic products of food.
What's the first position? Fish?
They have picked the dumbest thing. They have, by the way.
I mean, listen.
Wait. Notice that I can guarantee you that they have picked those spots there to show the least increases. They rubber.
Listen, I will tell you this much: the big like circle chart. Yeah. Even that doesn't like. These are very weird positions and weird like way to divide.
Yeah, but when Russian official propaganda has to release this, then first thing is frozen fish plus 27.7%. To right now it costs 324 rubles per kilo. Tomatoes.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Let me get the.
And this is
USD. Or no, I guess. Yeah, let's do USD.
Because they show
how much was
again in the same period from January to September. This is all these months.
Okay, how much was it?
324 rubles, 0.88, increased by 27.7%.
So that is like $4 US dollars per kilogram?
Per kilogram of frozen fish.
Yes.
Tomatoes increase of 20.23%, and that's 203 rubles.
203 rubles, that is 250. Jesus Christ. 250, okay. Okay, the fish one was, I mean, what I'd expect, but those are some. What kind of tomatoes are? Those are prices we have.
Yeah. Cheese 1 kilo plus 17.11%, $975, 975 rubles per kilogram.
12.30.
Yeah, that's more expensive.
For like basic cheese.
Yeah.
Because this definitely isn't like, some high grade cheese.
Reminder: not everyone is making Moscow salaries.
Listen, if cheese cost that much here in Riga, people would not be really, a lot of people couldn't afford it.
The median salary is 30,000 rubles per month.
30,000 rubles per month, and that is
That's how.
That's $378.
Yeah, that's because that is what people make on average. The default outside Moscow, St. Petersburg, and every other. They have 13 cities with 1 million people each. That's like Yekaterinburg, all those places. Because Moscow is not. Moscow is its own thing.
It's almost half what the Latin. But that's their average salary.
Median.
Because
inequality is so vast.
Okay, this is the median salary. Okay. Yeah, but that's like almost half of what our minimum wage is.
Vodka 1 liter plus 15.29% to 858 rubles per liter.
Okay, that's not. I mean, again, for their prices, that is insane. That is like borderline. Because again, that is most likely the standard vodka, which is the bottom of the shelf, so to speak.
Yeah. Beef plus 15% at 664 rubles.
64. That is $8.38. Okay. I mean, beef is more expensive in Europe, generally speaking, so that's not too. But again, compared to their ability to actually their price parity, horrible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but pasteurized milk 1 liter plus 15%, and that's 96 rubles, which is about €1.
€1.21.
Which is, again, it's literally what we pay here for a liter
that's
of milk.
That should not be the case.
And again, these are the positions where prices do not look so outrageous.
Yeah.
At one point, I remember that onions and the cucumbers had increased by 115% too, by the way. Let us see now. No, this is where you'll see why the positions are handpicked. Bread sliced.
Okay.
Plus 13.94%. It's also euro. It's 97 rubles.
Mm-hmm.
And then after sliced bread, it's
bread has bread as well.
And then the next bread is like they picked sliced bread and black bread. Where is the white unsliced bread? Let's not talk about this.
Listen, already the white sliced bread.
Unsliced, pshenichny. I think it's the black one. I need to ask.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
It's 115 rubles, €1.15 for that.
115. 150. Yeah. $1.50.
Pork per kilo plus 11.5%. It's 399 rubles per kilo.
$5 for what it was? What is
pork? 1 kilo. Also notice how they do not specify cuts of meat or anything. It's just beef and pork. Because that can mean many things.
It does depend. I mean, to be fair, this is not okay. This one isn't outrageous though.
The one thing is that what they also put in is like in this list. Sunflower seed oil instead of butter, because butter would be like, come on.
Butter is probably like...
That's plus 11%, and that's 150 rubles per liter.
Again, very similar to what we would buy, like what we would spend in our grocery stores, without,
And again...
with the actual ability to buy and we have way more resources at our disposal.
Спадом. В январе-сентябре число покупок выросло лишь на 3,5 против 6 в начале года. Наблюдается снижение продаж в натуральном выражении. Молоко минус 8, гречка минус 9, рис минус 10. При этом средний чек вырос до 1100 рублей, плюс 9% за счет инфляции.
Oh yeah, the real sales of products are falling. Meanwhile, the average receipt is increasing. Why? Well,
в итоге потребители переходят на более дешевые продукты и ищут скидки. В это время глава Центробанка Эльвира Набиуллина рассказывает про высокую сберегательную активность россиян как фактор снижения инфляции. Да, возможно, кто-то в это время держит миллионы на депозитах, а кто-то вот экономит на еде. В среднем же все едят голубцы, иронизирует канал. Также растет закредитованность компаний, пишут там же. Расходы компаний на обслуживание кредитов выросли до исторического максимума. Компании направляют более 36% прибыли на обслуживание займов. Таковы данные на конец сентября. Это исторический максимум. За год показатель вырос почти на 10% пунктов, а за 6 лет увеличился на 20%. Таковы данные Центра макроэкономического анализа и краткосрочного прогнозирования. Основная причина роста долговой нагрузки – повышение ключевой ставки до 21%, максимума более чем за 20 лет, отмечают эксперты. Параллельно усилилось банковское регулирование. В нынешнем кредитном цикле доля корпоративных займов с плавающей ставкой необычно высокая. У крупнейших банков она достигает около 75%. процентов. И компании пока не ощущают снижения ключевой ставки до 16,5%. Долговые расходы бизнеса по итогам третьего квартала продолжали расти. Компании сильно закредитованы и нередко вынуждены занимать, чтобы погашать старые обязательства, что в свою очередь снижает прибыль. В 2024 году расходы на проценты выросли в 1,8 раза, а в первой половине 2025 еще в 1,5. Теперь вопрос, закладываются ли эти выросшие расходы в стоимость продукции и разгоняют ли дополнительную инфляцию? Или ничего подобного в нашей экономике даже представить нельзя, и вся эта жесткая денежно-кредитная политика способствует исключительно снижению инфляции? Задаются они вопросом. Аналитики заявляют, что такая ситуация усиливает риски банкротств и дефолтов, тормозит экономику и как раз-таки ускоряет инфляцию. Z-канал RuSIS пишет про увольнение и сокращение на Урал.
He of course doesn't specify, but the Z-канал RuSIS, that's Desherga RuSIS, those are the open neo-Nazis who fight for Russia. They are the open, most hardcore neo-Nazis out there. That's what RuSIS is.
В заводе начинаются массовые сокращения, пишут там. По официальным данным, предприятие планирует уволить около 10% работников до начала 2026 года. Это примерно 2000 человек. Для завода, где трудится свыше 20 тысяч сотрудников, такое число уже подпадает под категорию массового сокращения по трудовому законодательству. Источники внутри предприятия говорят, что в отдельных подразделениях под увольнение может попасть до половины штата. Речь идет не только о рабочих, но и о специалистах гражданского направления. Для части из них уже вводят 4-дневную рабочую неделю, а набор новых сотрудников временно приостановлен. Формально причина снижения заказов и загрузки производства. После резкого роста в оборонном секторе в 2022-2023 годах завод, похоже, столкнулся с сокращением финансирования и спроса. ТГ-канал «Мобилизационная экономика» тем временем рассказывает, что роста экономики больше нет даже в официальной статистике. К ноябрю 2025 года фактически остановился рост экономики России. Выпуск базовых отраслей в третьем квартале был вблизи нуля. Макроэкономразвитие предварительно оценивает рост ВВП в 0,6, то есть 0,6% год к году. Центробанк еще ниже, 0,4. Но тут нужно знать аппаратное правило. Ответственным чиновникам нельзя показывать нулевую статистику, хотя бы на 0,1%, но притянуть рост. Четвертый квартал в рядовой отрасли – это сельское хозяйство, промпроизводство, строительство, грузооборот, транспорта, розничная и оптовая торговля. Совокупно они дают 2/3 ВВП. Инфляция, ради борьбы с которой была остановлена экономика, напротив, показывает 8,1 в годовом выражении, до целевого порога 4, как до Пекина пешком. К концу 2025 года стратегия Центробанка показывает свою полную несостоятельность, считают в канале. Ну а перед тем, как мы двинемся дальше, я напомню, что вы можете поддержать это видео вашим лайком, комментарием и подпиской на канал. Все эти действия помогают его продвижению. Сейчас умирает к субсидиарным ответам. ФЗ сообщает о процессах умирания производств. Банкротство как элемент войны озаглавлен его пост. Вчера присутствовал на круглом столе в Государственной Думе Российской Федерации, где также разбирался прецедент банкротства уникального производственного треста «Запсибгидрострой» с попыткой сделать кредитора Сургутнефтегазбанк субсидиарным ответчиком по долгам треста. Случай для современной России не рядовой, но уже типичное крупное предприятие с историей, выполняя важнейший инфраструктурный проект, нарывается по своим сметам и обязательствам, после чего безжалостно идет под нож банкротства. По схожей схеме сейчас умирает уникальное предприятие в Воронеже, конструкторское бюро химавтоматики. В большинстве случаев проблема выглядит так. Предприятие берется за один или несколько крупных длинных заказов в области инфраструктуры, производства, строительства, но под давлением санкций, инфляции и недружественной к промышленности политики Центробанка начинает срывать сроки, выходить из сметы или не может приобрести необходимые для исполнения заказа комплектующие. В итоге через пару лет исполнение национально значимых контрактов превращается в бесконечную административно-судебную тяжбу с заказчиками и подрядчиками. Никто уже ничего не производит, все судятся друг с другом в арбитражах. Промышленного ребенка вплескивают с финансовой водой, причем с завидной регулярностью даже во время СВО. Владимир Путин в своих выступлениях 23-25 годов многократно обращал внимание, что Запад, США ведут с Россией гибридную войну, одним из элементов которой является уничтожение уникальных промышленных предприятий и научных институтов на территории России. На 25 год десятки предприятий пострадали от ударов украинских военных дронов. Также многие предприятия пострадали от диверсий. Уничтожить предприятия, задействованные в национальных и военных проектах нашей страны, можно 3 способами: воздушным ударом, диверсией и банкротством. С учетом сложности ведения хозяйственной деятельности во время СВО, когда одновременно давит инфляция и санкции, любой, даже самый устойчивый технический подрядчик может влететь под потенциальное банкротство. Но здравомыслие подсказывает, что одна из форм ведения боевых действий против промышленного сектора России, которая мало чем отличается по своим последствиям от ракетного удара. В связи с чем, пишет Зетник, надо разобраться с уже имеющимся прецедентом Сургутнефтегазбанка, чтобы не плодить страхи у частного капитала, так и заняться всеми подобными ситуациями. На круглом столе также предложил как вариант создать при президенте России в сотрудничестве с Минэкономразвития, Минобороны, Центробанком и Минпромторгом специальный орган, специалисты которого могли бы, пользуясь межведомственными полномочиями, расшивать подобные конфликты и содействовать процедурам оздоровления предприятий в интересах исполнения национально значимых проектов, пишет Зетник. В любом случае, оставлять ситуацию как есть уже нельзя, сообщает Живов. И это, конечно, удивительная вообще концепция, что, оказывается, опять насрали в штаны, опять Запад каким-то образом сделал так, что закрываются заводы в России. Ну, то есть, такие заявления говорят, что либо у России совсем нет суверенитета, либо что Путин немецкий шпион. Говорят, что называется, сами. РГМЗ пишет в своем телеграм-канале, россиян ждет волна роста цен из-за повышения налогов для бизнеса, следует из данных Центробанка. Согласно им, в следующие 3 месяца предприятие планирует увеличить цены в среднем на 6,3% в годовом выражении. И это еще не все. Основной ценовой удар может прийтись на конец зимы, начало весны, считают эксперты. Живов Z пишет в другом посте, российская промышленность находится между стагнацией и спадом. Как пишет независимая газета, отечественная промышленность сталкивается с падением инвестиций и стагнацией, указывает Зетник. По данным Минпромторга и независимых экспертов, производство находится на грани спада. И единственным сегментом, демонстрирующим положительную динамику, является производство и экспорт удобрений. По данным издания, в сентябре 2025 года объем промышленного производства упал на 1%, что значительно ниже прошлогоднего роста на 0,3%. Без учета оборонки спад составил 1,1%, а в гражданских отраслях 1,82%. Отмечается, что промышленность снижает рентабельность до уровня пандемии, а разрыв между кредитными ставками достиг исторического максимума. Издание подчеркивает, что инвестиционная активность снижается. Предложение стройматериалов вернулось к уровню 2019 года, а экономика приближается к рекордно низким показателям 2022. Ранее Борис Титов заявил, что ЦБ загнал российский бизнес в тупик. Он отметил, что из-за высокой процентной ставки компании теряют доходы, накапливают долги и прекращают свои инвестиции. РБК пишет, что Мечел отчитался о худшем более чем за десятилетие квартале по добыче угля на фоне кризисной угольной отрасли. Добыча снижается 4-й квартал подряд. Так что новые рекорды, что называется, бьем и бьем, куда деваться. Экономика для людей пишет, что имущественный комплекс Ленинградского электромеханического завода пустили с молотка. Принадлежавший обанкротившемуся электромеханического завода пустили с молотка. Принадлежавший обанкротившемуся УК «Ленинградский электромеханический завод» ЛМЗ, промышленный комплекс на Петерговском шоссе в Санкт-Петербурге продан за 1,2 миллиарда рублей в рамках процедуры банкротства. Об этом сообщает деловой Петербург. Объект включает 5,6 гектаров земли и здание общей площадью 52 тысячи квадратных метров. Производственные корпуса, складские помещения, конструкторское бюро, котельную. Стала ООО «Лемспромпарк». Компания специализируется на управлении недвижимостью. То есть это будет не завод, это будет, судя по всему, добавляют сюда какие-то очередные новостройки. Ленинградский электромеханический завод был основан в 2013 году. Предприятие было одним из ведущих в СССР по разработке и производству приборов учета электроэнергии для бытового, мелкомоторного и промышленного секторов потребления. В феврале 2020 года по заявлению ООО «Агроэкспорт» в отношении завода ввели процедуру наблюдения. В июле 2024 года компанию признали банкротом. Она задолжала кредиторам более 3,1 миллиарда рублей. Ушедший с молотка имущественный комплекс – крупная промышленная площадка класса С с потенциалом для девелопмента, говорят эксперты. И, к сожалению, деиндустриализация в угоду девелоперским интересам продолжается. В регионах жалуется этот канал. На взыскание коллекторам передали рекордную сумму – 1,2 триллиона рублей, отчитывается МФ «Экономика для людей». За 9 месяцев 2025 года кредиторы передали на взыскание коллекторам по агентской схеме 1,2 триллиона. Это больше, чем за каждый полный год с 20 по 24. При этом участники рынка ждут рекордов и от 4-го квартала. По прогнозам НАПКО, в целом в 2025 году объем агентского взыскания может составить 1,3 триллиона рублей. По итогам года рынок выйдет на абсолютный рекорд по этому показателю и может достичь 40 миллионов кейсов. Все дело в том, что в условиях на рекорд по этому показателю может...
The amount of going to Basically, this is the amount that they have to go through the credit collection agencies and gather that stuff.
You mean the amount of debt?
The amount of requests for late payments.
To extend payment, basically. Yes? No?
No, this is when courts go to someone whose payments have been late and
okay. Court-ordered debt repayment. Okay. The amount of court-ordered debt repayment.
The gray one is debt to commercial banks, and this one is central bank.
Достичь 40 миллионов кейсов. Все дело в том, что в условиях высоких ставок рефинансирование долгов становится проблематичным, и кредиторам все чаще приходится обращаться к взыскателям. Это Пронько пишет, долг РЖД достиг 4 триллионов рублей. Это ведущий Царьграда. Правительство ищет способы помочь госкомпании, пишет Рейтер со ссылкой на источники. Среди обсуждаемых предложений рост тарифов на грузоперевозки, увеличение субсидий, снижение налогов, использование средств ФНБ. Между тем, на покупку футбольного небоскреба деньги есть, на футбольный клуб и иные опционные деньги есть. Что будет в итоге? И рост тарифов, и субсидий за счет денег налогоплательщиков, и вливание из госфонда. РЖД – ярчайший пример обнаглевшей госмонополии, пишет Пронько в своем телеграм-канале. Хочется задать вопрос, а знаешь, почему монополии наглеют? Угадай с 3 раз. Образ будущего пишет, Госдума подтвердила свою поддержку маркетплейсов в борьбе крупных банков против платформ. Лидер фракции «Справедливая Россия» Сергей Миронов в письме главе ЦБ Эльвире Набиуллиной указал на недопустимость подавления одного из важных инструментов конкуренции и развития цифровой коммерции – инвестиции в гибкую ценовую политику, выгодную для потребителей. Миронов заявил, что конкуренция в виде собственных фининструментов цифровых платформ стала банковскому лобби поперек горла. Однако скидки, бонусы, программы лояльности сегодня есть не только у маркетплейсов, но и офлайн-магазинов и у тех же банков. Депутат призвал ЦБ при выработке правил добросовестной конкуренции учитывать интересы потребителей и проанализировать предложения банков по равному доступу к платформам с точки зрения потенциальных последствий для экономики и граждан. По прогнозам самих маркетплейсов, запреты на скидки и программы лояльности приведут к повышению цен для 85 миллионов покупателей платформ, прежде всего в малых городах и селах. Телеканал «Сталинград», вот уж казалось бы, от кого не ожидаешь, но тем не менее. Либо пешком, либо на телеге, пишут они название своего поста. Сферу общественного транспорта накрывает ползучий кризис. За 3 года в РФ закрылась каждая 8-я компания в сфере городских пассажирских перевозок. Рынок покинули 875 коммерческих организаций и индивидуальных предпринимателей, подсчитали аналитики Контрфокуса. Последствия для граждан катастрофичные. Маршруты сокращаются, интервалы растут, а некоторые районы городов и вовсе остаются без транспорта. Пик кризиса пришелся на 25-й год. Свою деятельность прекратили 426 операторов городских пассажирских перевозок. Вдобавок ко всему, финансирование общественного транспорта из бюджета в 2026 и 2027 годах будет катастрофически урезано. В следующем году оно уменьшится в 3 раза, с 42,6 до 13,8 миллиардов рублей. А это приведет почти к остановке обновления автобусов, трамваев и троллейбусов, несмотря на то, что большая часть парка общественного транспорта в стране уже выработала свой срок службы. Полуразвалившиеся маршрутки и, на честном слове, еще как-то помогающие народу добраться с работы на работу, могут кануть в лету. Чего там говорить про отдаленные уголки страны, в которых автобусные парки доживают свои последние времена. Но что еще не менее важно осознать, пишут они, всю нехватку госфинансирования восполнит народ, на плечи которого ляжет повышение оплаты проезда. Перемещение в пространстве в новом издании феодализма, как и в прошлом, становится постепенно роскошью, доступной только для нового дворянства, пишет телеграм-канал «Сталинград». РГМЗ сообщает, АвтоВАЗ перейдет на режим работы в одну смену с 2026 года из-за обрушения спроса на автомобили компании. Сотрудники опасаются, что это приведет к резкому сокращению зарплат, которые сейчас не самые высокие, в среднем 70 тысяч рублей. Если это произойдет, завод ждут массовые увольнения.
AvtoVAZ is the guys that make all the commerce shits, and they're in their industrial plant, which is quite advanced.
Isn't AvtoVAZ also that
they make 70,000 rubles per month. That's How much is 70,000 rubles per month?
Like the engineers, or
it's the average salary in that factory.
Yeah,
which is a really kind of big factory that now makes tanks too.
$883.
Yeah, that is the average.
That is basically almost equivalent to a minimum wage.
These are the guys who make these cars, and they also produce tanks.
Кучка кадров, результатом чего станет еще большее падение качества сборки машин. Это оказалось бы куда уж больше. Я сейчас как раз готовлю, надеюсь, скоро бахну. РГМЗ пишет, с 1 января 2026 года стоимость банковских услуг резко вырастет. На них начнут начислять 22% НДС. Под удар попадает все. Переводы, оплата картами, комиссии. Государство рассчитывает заработать на этом 30 миллиардов рублей, а бизнес готовится поднимать цены. С учетом распространенности безналичных платежей подорожает буквально все. Каждая сфера и каждая отрасль. РуТВ Максим Калашников пишет, в 26-м году время простых решений. Почему блокировка WhatsApp совершенно не удивляет, пишет он. Достаточно поглядеть на цифры дефицита бюджета 25 года. Уже весной 26-го нашему руководству придется принимать непростые решения по войне. Понеже экономика трещит. Блокировка WhatsApp Роскомнадзора проблемы не решает. Упущенные шансы 14-22 года мстят весьма жестоко. Что дальше? Новая нефть не поможет. Что мы имеем в бюджете 2025, задается вопросом. Доходы 36,5 триллионов рублей, что почти на 2 триллиона рублей меньше запланированного. Расходы 42,3 триллиона рублей на прежнем уровне. Дефицит 5,7 триллионов рублей или 2,6% ВВП. Это он еще не видел, какой будет в конце года. А я вам говорю, там будет 8. Гляжу, недавний доклад Центра макроэкономического анализа и краткосрочного прогнозирования, ЦМАК, пишет он. В бюджете 25-го отразился сильный кризис, последствия затянувшейся позиционной войны, усиление санкций, спад в экономике, отразились падение сборов всех основных налогов. По итогам года государство соберет на 5 триллионов рублей меньше плана по 7 ключевым податям, от которых зависит половина государственных доходов. В 2026 году положение станет еще суровее, ведь в действие вступит повышение налогов, тяжелого НДС, всяких сборов и поборов, что ускорит падение экономики и сократит поступления в казну. Налицо угроза остановки предприятий и жестокого кризиса бюджетов регионов России. В этом смысле попытка набрать доходы в казну с населения в условиях падения нефтегазовых поступлений новая нефть провалилась, ибо бедные низы совсем не углеводородный экспорт. То есть не только Украина, но и Россия впала в жестокий социально-экономический кризис. Все понятно, невозможно одновременно воевать и бороться с тяжким кризисом, вызванным многолетней позиционной бойней. Тут ты либо быстро побеждаешь и занимаешься спасением страны, либо в ходе войны получаешь экономический крах. А следом идут социально-политические потрясения, усобицы в элите, невозможно содержать силовой аппарат и, впрочем, вариант, толкаемый Трампом, удовлетворить нынешними результатами, смиритесь с тем, что в Киеве останется антирусский режим, и подписывайте перемирие. В 2026 году нашему руководству придется принимать непростые решения. Прекрасно понимаю, что блокировка WhatsApp есть преддверие драматических политических потрясений. Эта мера, нацеленная на предотвращение массовых низовых недовольств. Но это паллиатив, ведь все потрясения и революции начинаются с раздрая и усобиц в верхах, в бомонде. Но эта блокировка мессенджеров не влияет никак. А то, что мы видим в анализе СМАК, просто предопределяет напряженность именно в элите. Не люблю всего слова применения к РФ. Быстро победить? Для этого нужно воевать не пехотой в стиле «Безумный Макс» против дронов Мадяра, а воздушной наступательной кампанией. Но, как мы неоднократно показывали и доказывали, сырьевая деиндустриализованная экономика не в силах вести такие войны. Она сваливается в переиздание Первой мировой. Нет и машины времени, чтобы вернуться в начало 14-го, исправив стратегический просчет и решить проблему быстро, но малокровно. Делаем вывод, пишет он, 26-й год становится годом крайне опасного системного кризиса, который накрывает не только нас, но и США. Про Украину вообще молчу. Это похоже на эффект усталости металла. Железная балка, долго испытывая огромные нагрузки, вдруг лопается, переламывается. Товарищи патриоты, готовимся к борьбе за живучесть корабля. Единственная разумная деятельность сейчас — крепить не политические, гражданские и сплоченные группы, как это делает та же русская народная движение, что готовится к антикризису в случае мигрантских беспорядков. Чувство локтя и организация, как показывает мой жизненный опыт, в конце 2021 года мигрантских беспорядков, как это единственная разумная деятельность сейчас — крепить не политические, гражданские и сплоченные группы, как это делает та же русская народная дружина, что готовится к антикризису в случае мигрантских беспорядков. Чувство локтя и организация, как показывает мой жизненный опыт конца 91 года, крайне важны, сообщает Калашников. Странно, что какой-то гайд выживальщика не прикрепляет. Телеканал «Сталинград» добавляет про госкомпании. Они разгоняют кризис неплатежей. Власти стали чаще фиксировать жалобы бизнеса на задержки с оплатой госкомпаний по контрактам в рамках 223 ФЗ, закупки компаний с госучастием их дочерних обществ, некоторых бюджетных учреждений, унитарных предприятий. Сообщили «Ведомостям» представители корпорации МСП, КМСП и Федеральной антимонопольной службы ФАС. Количество возбужденных административных дел по неплатежам за прошедший период 2025 года выросло до 1173 после 980 за весь 2024. В 2025 КМСП получила в 2,5 раза больше обращений по сравнению с прошлым годом по вопросу неплатежей субъектам МСП по договорам, заключенным в рамках 223 ФЗ, сообщил «Ведомостям». ведомостям ее представителей. В 2024 было 200 обращений на общую сумму 1,5 миллиарда, а в текущем поступило уже 482, почти на 3,6 миллиардов, уточнил собеседник ведомостей. Эта новость говорит о том, что с бюджетами госкомпаний и госкорпораций все очень нехорошо. Убытки и высокая долговая нагрузка делают свое дело. Срывы сроков оплаты в ряде случаев могут быть преднамеренными, уверены представители бизнеса. Выгода по процентам на депозитах зачастую существенно превышает возможные расходы на пени и судебные издержки, отмечал координатор деловой России ВСО Дмитрий Панов. Иными словами, госкомпании, зная, что особых проблем с законом у них не будет, крутят деньги малого и среднего предпринимательства в своих бизнес-интересах. Ну как не воспользоваться админресурсом, когда деньги очень нужны государевым коммерсантам? А банкротство малого и среднего бизнеса и следующая за ними безработица и невыплата зарплат работникам – это такая ерунда для крупных собственников, пишет телеграм-канал «Сталинград». Ну и Зергулева пишет: напоследок, малый бизнес, чтобы адаптироваться к росту налоговой нагрузки, намерен повысить цены для потребителей. «Коммерсант» сообщает об этом со ссылкой на исследование. Союз бухгалтеров и налоговых консультантов были авторами. А были еще варианты, задается вопросом Зетник. Открою еще один секрет. Так поступит не только малый бизнес, даже исследования не понадобились. Это мы еще не знаем последствий применения НДС к операциям с банковскими картами. С 2006 года они имели льготу, сообщает он. Ну и военный осведомитель делится тем, что и в военной промышленности все очень и очень плохо. А у вас все так спокойненько, так хорошо, цитирует он. Прошел уже 5-й месяц, как новейший морской буксир для ВМФ РФ проекта 234-70. Капитан Ушаков, затонувший еще в начале августа с технической готовностью 97%, продолжает отдыхать в кавычках в затопленном состоянии у причала Балтийского завода в Санкт-Петербурге. Затонувшего капитана Ушакова из воды так и не достали. Его владелец, Ярославский судостроительный завод, на наш вопрос, что же помешало это сделать, сослался на Минобороны, которая выступала заказчиком буксира. Судно строится по гособоронзаказу, поэтому раскрывает данную информацию и комментировать ее разрешения нет, пришел ответ. Может, это и совпадение, но вместе с тем ЯСЗ не может найти почти миллиард рублей на подъем судна, поскольку балансирует на грани коллапса. Долги в 26,3 миллиарда, выручка рухнула на треть, остаток на счетах 92 миллиона. По оценкам эксперта, замена утонувшего оборудования и отделка Ушакова обойдется в сумму порядка 40% от стоимости буксира. Интересно, как это у Кима подняли эсминец меньше, чем за неделю? Чудеса? Творческий подход? Или все-таки там есть совесть за свою страну и отечество? Задается вопросом Z-канал «Военный осведомитель». Ну а я с вами на этом прощаюсь. Пишите комментарии, подписывайтесь на канал и до скорых встреч. Всего доброго.
Yeah. But at some point you reach a stage where there's nothing left to corrupt because everything it has been corrupted.
So yeah, we'll end the stream with this one.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask you one little thing. Where is the video? Oh, here's the video. I'll just put myself on full screen. Given the following information we found out from literally all the pro-Russian sources and everything, and all the historical background.
Yes, we went through from the 19th century till today.
All this mess, right? Mm-hmm. If you can find it, like, if you see a way how they can maybe, I don't know, fix their economy and keep the whole regions together. Reminder, those regions who get robbed from their resources and no one cares about them, right? At which point regions will just decide that they will just gonna go, like in Moscow, protests won't be happening, but like in far east, like how long when the Kuril Islanders decide to do petition to join Japan, and who's gonna stop them over there?
It's hard to say because, as with anything like this, we don't know what's gonna break first. Because there has to be a foundational event.
I think Ramzan Kadyrov doing
that is a very possible scenario. So like there has to be something that basically kicks off the dominoes that start falling apart. Because currently everyone's just kind of like, it's like musical chairs. Like everyone's walking around, everyone's still believing.
And this is why I believe August, because all the bad shit happens to Russia in August. That's their darkest month.
That is true.
And also that's enough months from now for everything to get like really bad.
August 1991 is the month when the Soviet Union died.
In August also, in August everything happened. I think. No, of course, but September, August traditionally is like the horrible, the worst economically. Everything bad is in August.
Also, I should say that the Soviet Union was disillusioned in August of 1991, but during the coup, any prospects for it to continue died.
But yeah, if someone tries to tell you that it's all Ukrainian propaganda, note we have used in this economical section we have used exactly 0 Ukrainian sources. And if someone has any reasons or potential solutions which they miraculously will do,
you know what? I will whenever we do another one of these, I will come up with best case scenarios, and we can take them apart.
Elon Musk dies, and it turns out that in his will he's left everything he owns to Russia, the Russian government.
That won't help either. That would maybe fill the budget shortfall for like a year.
Also, weirdly enough, technically Vladimir Putin has much more liquid resources than Elon Musk. It's just that
he has more liquid resources. He doesn't have more assets.
And again, I hope that we've shown you one thing, that everything that's happening now is a result of systemic action, which was forced to make everyone apathetic, create a system of corruption and mistrust. Everything is going according to as it should be. It's systematic, continuous, and like
this has been a thing that's been going on. It's been in the making for a very long time.
And if someone says that Russia is winning, I can ask at what, literally, and how? How is this? Okay, they will declare they'll win the war. They will definitely do that because they can't not. It is impossible. They will. No matter what happens, they will declare
all
they
that
have won.
reminds me of is Bush 2000. I don't remember which year, but when he had that press conference on the aircraft carrier, mission accomplished.
I wouldn't be surprised if they declare victory in the war, no matter what happens there, and then next day some bullshit starts.
I wouldn't put it that quickly.
Yeah, well, relatively close.
I think again the problem is it's hard to predict this because we don't.
And you know what's the worst part?
There are few unknowns.
There is something that I can guarantee you, because everyone's looking out for themselves. So those in the West who are the paid influencers and Russia shells who take Kremlin's money, see, well, they don't understand the levels of every man for himself attitude. Because if there will be a chance for someone in the troll farms to get away, make a big buck, and arrange himself his life, those documents will come out easily. They will all be leaked, and they will be running in droves to get the dollars for them.
Yeah.
Because there will be no loyalty there, and everything will be nice and clear.
I mean, there's literally only one thing I can say, which is
Yeah.
We shall live and we shall see.
So, до свидания, товарищи. Happiness is mandatory. And also, please go to the description, the Christmas car, and help out the Ukrainian army. Yes. Because although Russia is gonna collapse inevitably, well, they can't conquer Ukraine or break Ukrainian spirit. What they can do is murder civilians and destroy cities. And that should be stopped.
Yes.
Goodbye. And next episode when I go back to Lodz. See ya.
Bye-bye.